Hello everyone, and welcome back to Fleet's Catch-Up Ramblings, where we once again dive into the idea of catching up, the thought process of catching up, and the ways in which we can, in fact, catch up. I am once again your host, the Fleet of Oceans. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Fleet's
And I have been
Catch-Up Ramblings,
flashbanged
where we once again
by
dive
my own live
into...
stream. That's gonna sound weird. That's gonna sound very, very weird. But yeah, so after being flashed by my own live stream, let's get back into it. So, as I'm sure you are all aware, we now go to the stage. Oh, I would if I wasn't so bloody warm. Right, there we go. And then not that, and then we have a link, and then there we go. Right. Excuse me 1 second, I'm gonna crack a window. It's too bloody warm in this shed. Mine is too bloody warm outside as well. It's too warm everywhere. Hang on. Right a bit, left a bit, side a bit, shuffle. There we go. Comfy. Comfy chair. Right, okay. So, starting from, I'd like to thank Rowan for rearranging the questions so it wasn't all a massive string of gunnery officer all the time. The gunnery officer's questions are still here, but it's not all in one massive block. So, Jesus Christ, it is getting warm
Micro
today.
penises united?
Oh, shut up, Foxo.
What? I'm just supporting my least favourite football team.
I forget what the nicknames are for football teams these days.
Oh, sorry, they're not Micro Penises United, they're Manchester United. Sorry.
I don't know the nicknames for football teams, so... Anyway, so, Cvix asks... Okay, so what engine is better? Sulzer or B and W? Two-stroke engines.
State the first engine again?
What engine is better, Sulzer or B and W? Not B.
Oh, there you go. That's why I can't hear. I can't speak. Click the reply. Click the reply for the context.
There we go.
That's just the question on the Russian naval shipyards. What's that got to do with two-stroke engines?
And somebody had said during that use Russian diesels.
Yes, but Sulzer and B&W are Western companies, not Russian companies. Russians have their own diesel engines.
Well, they don't know for this period. That's part of their issue.
I mean, they do. What are they putting in the kilos?
A bastardization of a much older engine.
Yes, but it is still Russian, technically.
Because they're kind of stuck in a V2 situation.
I mean, honestly, I don't know enough about diesel engines to actually firmly comment on. Excuse me 1 second. I'll be back in just a tick.
But it's why would you get a submarine or any high capacity diesel from Germany in this period? Especially a two-stroke engine. Ugh. No, don't go to two-stroke BMWs. I'm getting cold.
later. Alright, Mum. Right. So. Right. Right, okay. So, as I was saying, I don't know much about diesel engines, so I'm not really in a position to comment on which of those two is better. If anyone else on the panel knows about diesel engines, then be my guest.
As a general rule, a two-stroke engine tends to have a little bit more power and is more mechanically simple, but is more sensitive to fuel. Because the fuel is the lubricant. It is also
both of those two-stroke engines, though, at that point?
Say again?
Aren't both of the engines that we're discussing two-stroke engines? So at that point...
I don't know enough to say, personally. I'm giving why a two-stroke engine may be better or worse depending upon your application.
Yeah.
The problem is there's two problems with the two-stroke, which are not necessarily a concern for military applications.
1 second, I'm just gonna say, I'm sorry to cut you off, I just realized something, because gun officers just typified it. I'll say this again, and I'll put out another announcement. Again,
no, he doesn't have
to make it clear. If you want to be pinged when Ramblings goes live... Hang on, Rowan, could you actually step into head admin role for a second? Because for some reason people are ignoring me, even though it's an everyone ping. Like, I've done it twice now, and people just... And I know there are people who like to listen to Ramblings that do not have the role, still.
So what do you want me to do?
Put an announcement saying you need to go to this channel and grab this role if you want to be pinged when Ramblings starts. Because we have noticed there are some people who are regular Ramblings attendees and who complain about not being pinged do not have the stream announcements role. Right. So moving on. Bowmill Boy asks, following on from the previous question...
Can I finish my point?
Yes, you can, of course.
The two big drawbacks of a two-stroke engine, which are not necessarily concerns for military applications, are that it burns dirty and it is technically a less efficient engine for the fuel because it is using a dirtier fuel. In generally, four-cycle engines are better. They are less dirty burning, but two-stroke can get you more power if you're willing to take losses elsewhere.
Well, you're speaking in relation of automotive diesel engines, right?
In relation to what?
Automotive diesel engines. Because I
What
would
type of
imagine that automotive.
I'm hearing audible engines.
Automotive.
No, I'm speaking in terms of general power source engines.
Yes, but...
Well, no, it's... You have fairly different fuel sources for marine diesel engines. You wouldn't have this issue with marine diesel engines because, simply speaking, marine diesel fuel is just of a lower quality to begin with. There's fundamentally no reason to go to four strokes for a marine diesel engine. Hence the reason why both engines I've mentioned are two strokes. What the difference between the two is, I don't know.
Bloody, it's so warm. Why is it so warm?
Because it's July.
Yeah. Right, okay. Bummill Boy, follow on from the previous question. What happens if the carrier version of Graf Spee mentioned in Monday's Ramblings manages to break out in the same way as in our timeline? She probably has a short, successful career and then dies. Because she's basically meat for a single cruiser. Ajax alone could probably kill her. With contemptuous ease, and so could Exeter.
And yeah,
It
fundamentally, she
depends
wouldn't.
on what is her air group and is Graf Spee able to keep distance between her and a hunter-killer force. If she can, then she can muck about. But as soon as she's pinned in place and somebody gets within gun range, or somebody gets in there with a superior air group, she's cooked.
She's most likely operating some form of navalized Vol 9, or maybe
Ooh.
even worse, some sort of weird
She
Heinkel
can't,
112
she can't
variant.
operate navalized 109.
Then it's gonna have to be Heinkel 112s. They don't really have much choice in terms of aircrafts. And it's gonna have to be some form of weird-ass navalized Stukas.
I don't think it is going to be Heinkel 112. And it's not going to be navalized Stuka either for the same reason as BF-109. Both navalized Stuka and navalized 109 needed the catapults on Graf Zeppelin to do takeoff with combat load. Heck, the BF-109 couldn't even do it light load. Heinkel 112 wouldn't be much better. If this carrier is going to sea, she's going to have to go to sea with navalized Heinkel 51 for a fighter. And if it's ready, Fiesler 167 as her torpedo, as her just general purpose strike aircraft for torpedo and bomb release. And I say strike aircraft, not dive bomber, because the 167 cannot dive bomb, but it can carry bombs.
Confused as to why you build a Graf Spee without catapult, but alright.
Well, I'm just saying the model shown did not have a catapult. It also didn't have the space for it underneath the extended forward flight deck. Not in the way the ship was arranged.
Alright.
And honestly, going to sea with navalized Heinkel 51 and Fiesel 167, even though they are both biplanes, in 39, that's perfectly fine. And also, both are very reliable, easy to fly aircraft.
I don't know about perfectly fine, but
I mean,
alright.
better than the alternative.
Not flying in there for air wing.
Yes, or you know, the abominations that would be the BF-109T. I still maintain that BF-109T and JU-87 were just why, like, honestly, navalized Heinkel 51 instead. Like, you're fighting the Fleet Air Arm, which has Fulmar and Skewer and Rock.
Well, yes, all of those aircrafts would most likely pose quite serious threat to 51s.
Not all the
Despite
time.
how trash those aircrafts are.
They're not bad. I mean, the thing is, if it comes to Fleet Air Defense, the 51 could probably bounce all of them. It's just escorting raids in that's going to be a problem.
And also,
Akazuki.
Don't run into a Sea Gladiator.
Yeah, Akazuki. It doesn't matter how much power and torque you give those aircraft. They cannot get enough wind over their wings and enough takeoff speed. It's just not. They are bad platforms for carrier use. There is no way to get around this. You can stick as beefy an engine in them as you like. The fact remains that they're just not set up for that sort of short field operation. The BF-109 especially so.
The only way you could do it, potentially, but you're just going to kill your endurance.
Can I just put a caveat on there? I know you've got something to say, but like I say, they did it by using the catapults, just putting that in there as the historical. They found a way to do it historically, but Ruinon's going to now suggest another way. Because, just pulling a Dr. Clark there, because, you know, if we didn't say that, we'd get jumped by Wereboos.
We're going to get jumped by Wereboos regardless, but
Yes.
The only other way that you could potentially do it, but it will kill your endurance as a unit, is make the airframes capable of taking a significant amount of rocket assisted takeoff.
It's not really happening in 1940, is it?
The rocket technology is around, but you would have to really push it. You'd have to really yeah, Akazuki, that also doesn't work either, because then the Stuka can't handle being a dive bomber, and the BF-109 will tear itself to pieces every time it lands, and I mean that quite literally.
Yeah, that's a problem with the available German aircraft as a fleet. None of them are carrier rated.
Well,
Yeah.
hang on. Is this? I don't remember. Is this Graf Spee built as a carrier again?
Converted to a carrier.
Converted to.
So she's built out as a heavy cruiser.
Let me put it
When
up.
When did they do the conversion?
Let me put it up on stream. 1 second. I'll put it up on stream. Give me a second.
No, I was just mostly wondering, when did they do the conversion? Because if they do it early enough, maybe, just maybe, they might be able to squeeze some weird ass thing out as a proper carrier aircraft.
Well, like I say, they can do it. Heinkel 51 and 167. They have the flight profile.
No, that is not the answer.
Why?
Those two aircraft is not a. It's not good enough for the era it needs to operate in.
I'm sorry, 167 is better than. It's probably, well, 167 is perfectly fine. It's actually perfectly acceptable for the era it's coming into. It's a faster version of what the British are fielding. Swordfish. So, if Swordfish remains combat capable to 41, 167, despite its somewhat anachronistic design, can be used. Is it perfect? No. Does it give you a strike aircraft for your carrier that isn't going to tear itself apart and be an absolute maintenance hellhole to launch and recover? Yeah, sure. Why?
Akazuki, the Wehrmacht, or just the Nazi government, had access to Japanese tech specs and design philosophies before the war, and they still looked at the Bern and said, "Yes, this is what we shall model the Graf Zeppelin off
And you
of."
want to know why they did that? Because the French are Europeans. The Japanese, despite being allies, are Asians. And also, they're Germany. We're doing it our way because we are the Übermensch and we know best. Even if everyone else is doing something, we will find our own way and it will be better than everyone else's because we thought of it, because we are the Nazi party and we are the Übermensch. That is what we're dealing with.
On this, unfortunately for the Nazi war machine to do anything that is objectively sensible, it requires a complete overhaul of some of the core tenets of the Nazi war machine to begin with. So,
heck, just the Nazi ideology. Never mind the war machine.
Yeah, you will sometimes see ideology get massaged in favor of more effective warfighting, but that doesn't happen here.
No. So, okay. Can we at least agree 167 will make a passable strike aircraft? Not perfect, not cutting edge, but passable.
It's a torpedo bomber, yeah, it'll be fine.
Okay. So, why are you so adamant that a Heinkel 51 is a bad choice? What do you know that I don't? You must have something to back this up, because you wouldn't otherwise be so strenuously objecting. So I'm genuinely curious, why do you not want 51? Is there some aspect of the aircraft that makes it not suitable for carrier operations?
No, it's just the fact that it's from 1931.
Yeah, maybe not.
It is a tad bit too old. I'm not saying the aircraft itself is bad, it's just old.
I mean, if you think about when this carrier might be hypothetically entering service, let's say 38, at that point the Luftwaffe would be looking to divulge itself of its 51s, or if you want a slightly better airframe, Arado 68, which is the other fighter, which is slightly more modern and slightly more capable, a conversion of either one of those airframes to carrier operations in that sort of late 30s period when this Graf Zeppelin carrier is coming in, not only is cheap to do with very little risk to the Luftwaffe for carrier operations, it also doesn't denude them of much needed Bf-109s, which they are using to replace the 68s and Heinkel 51s.
Yeah, but you are also still talking about the Luftwaffe.
Yeah, I mean,
Do you think they're good? Do you think they're going to be very content with putting an old biplane on the carrier? And
considering that Goering will be looking at it as a sideshow and something he's not too bothered about, and being more concerned with his land-based air force. Honestly, yeah, I do. Slap a squadron of Arado 68s and then wait for the 167 to come along.
Alright, fine. I guess, sure.
Yeah. Right, okay. Oh boy, big one. Big question. Big question. Biggly question. Biggly big question. Sorry, look, I've had a long week. I've driven all the way from the south of England to Newcastle in the space of 1 week. I've been all over the country. My brain is not quite with it. Slayer, what if the August coup of 1991 didn't happen? So the Baltics, Georgia, Armenia, and Moldova get independence. However, the new state is formed into a new republic according to the new Union Treaty. How would this change the power dynamics, geopolitical scene, and military dynamics of the 21st century, with the Union being semi-competitive with China and America, but being a firm third power, being able to keep things going? So the carriers under construction would be finished, and the like. Would Russia still create BRICS and the like? Would they mostly form a third group for nations that don't want to side with China or America? Well, first of all, they'd still be communist. This would just be Soviet Union. This would just be Soviet Union light. Admittedly, it would be, although whether or not the state would stay communist would depend entirely on how the elections held within each constituent republic would go. Because bear in mind, at this point, the whole point is to softly, well, try and keep communism in power by actually, making it work for people. But if Gorbachev is allowed to keep going and keep doing what he do, then yes, expect the state to kind of resolve itself into a form that is mostly independent. However, there is a sticking point here. Ukraine will break away. That cannot be stopped. Ukraine will... There will at some point come a flashpoint. Ukraine will continue to assert its sovereignty within the structure, and at some point there will be a breakaway. And Ukraine will break away to form its own independent state. That will be the first test of this new union in how it responds. If it responds by attempting to hold the state together by force, then expect the collapse of the USSR as we know it to take place once that happens. If, however, the departure of Ukraine from the new Union Treaty is handled with in an organized manner, and is handled in a way, presumably if Gorbachev is still in charge, and is handled in a way where they leave the new Union Treaty, they're no longer under Russian control, they are now the Independent Republic of Ukraine, they're wished all the best, and say, look, we know you're leaving the new Union Treaty, so you're not under our overall umbrella. We know you're all leaving, and we know you're not part of our whole umbrella. And if this only happens if Gorbachev or someone groomed by him or like him is in the Kremlin. But basically, I can see him going, look, you're leaving, fantastic, brilliant. Well, sorry, not fantastic, but we're sad to see you go. But we would still like to, we will have a proper departure ceremony. We'll sign all the official paperwork. We'll make it all official. But but if you like, it's up to you, of course, but if you like, we can retain the freedom of movement and freedom of trade between Ukraine, Russia, Belarus, etc., all the members of the new Union Treaty, so that our economy and your newly independent economy are not unduly affected, and the Union State renounces all territorial claims to Ukrainian land. If it does it that way, then at that point, it doesn't matter whether the Union State survives or not, because at that point, even if all the other members of the new Union Treaty do eventually pursue sovereign independence, the precedent is there that it is a soft independence, that everything is still interlinked, that the economic structure doesn't come crumbling down, that the bilateral ties, the movement of people, it's all still in place, the good relations are still there. Which means that even if eventually all the powers of the Union Treaty do eventually go their own way, the power of Russia and all the states within that bloc will be preserved quite successfully, as the economic strength of the bloc as a whole will be enough for the individual members to punch above their weight, and this includes Russia. Russia will be able to punch not quite like the Soviet Union was able to, but even with all of the members softly independent, as I've described it, they will still be able to maintain the sort of presence that we know from the Soviet military, although with a much less heavy emphasis, I expect, on land power. I expect you will see the reduction in the size of the Union army. So I reckon you'll see, especially if this soft independence movement occurs, I reckon you'll see a collective effort to defend the treaty area. So it wouldn't be called the nation anymore, like the Soviet Union. It'd be like to defend the treaty area. So you'd have commitments from the Ukrainian army, from the Belarusian army, from the Russian army, from the armies of the various Central Steppe nations. And each state would structure its force to attempt to deal with the situation it has to deal with. So, for example, the Ukrainian part of the alliance, whether it's part of the alliance or part of the treaty, would be responsible for Black Sea security and dealing with the Balkans and the western flank. So would build up a powerful land army and a solid but dependable Black Sea fleet. The Russians would be responsible for the strategic deterrence and overseas deployments of the alliance. So while I suspect the Russian army would retain a powerful core to respond to wherever it needs to be in the world and to act as a powerful backup to the Ukrainian and Belarusian armies, if it came down to a scrap fight in Europe, I expect to see the funding for the army drop as those funds are redirected to keeping the Russian Navy and the Russian Air Force competitive as the 90s rolls on and the 2000s appear. Since that is the part that Russia will be expected to quite heavily play, since it is the one with the maturity in those sectors. And it is the one... Yep.
So, the one thing I would say, Fleet, is that the Russian economy has been structured as a command economy for decades at this point.
Yep.
And if you suddenly bifurcate that command economy, I question how economically stable this power will continue to be. It may be more politically stable, but I don't think it'll be more economically stable. China had the benefit of essentially accepting foreign capital and investment from
bear in mind,
60 onwards?
Not that early. It took until the 80s for China to open up that way.
When was Nixon president?
70.
Yeah, Nixon was president in the 70s, but the opening up of China didn't come till the late 70s, early 80s. And it didn't fully kick off until the late 80s. What Gorbachev wanted to do was to do that. He wanted to soft walk the USSR away from state-controlled industry in all sectors to the state having a majority ownership of private industry.
Yes, but the treaty states that the central government would handle issues of defense, foreign affairs, financial system, and energy resources.
Yeah. And like I say, this is the thing. like I say, whether or not I do believe that Ukraine would go independent, but like I say, if it's handled well, they could remain within the bloc as in like that. I mean, it would become not just a union state; there would also be an alliance within it as well, which Ukraine might be in. Depends on how like I say, depends on how the split happens. But if it's handled well, if Gorbachev's still in charge and he's doing the correct thing, which is slowly walking the USSR towards a China-like situation, where you prioritize, where you have the socialism, and the socialism is part of the state, and it's, you are a socialist country, you're communist, but you prioritize the wealth of your citizens, the quality of life of your citizenry, and the growth of the national economy over strict adherence to socialist dogma. Which is what Gorbachev was walking towards. Just like China was.
I mean, it's a long shot. It might work, but it's a long shot.
I know. Like I say, like I say, it is very unlikely that the departure of a state like Ukraine would be handled peacefully by this new union state. I highly expect. I think it's 70-30. So either Gorbachev loses control of the situation, or the hardliners force him to act, and then there's a Russian-Ukrainian conflict, which, even if they win, will basically kick off the end of the union state, and oh boy, it's the historical collapse of the USSR. But if that 30% chance wins out, if Gorbachev's reforms have lent him enough legitimacy, if the people are actually seeing things improve, if the military actually respect his handling of it, the fact that their funding levels haven't decreased, that they are getting the kit they need to move the Russian army into the modern era. Bear in mind, the Russian army on the 1990s was on the verge of actually completely shifting its combat doctrine with the way the world was changing. They didn't get to because, the USSR fell. But in this scenario, if that change is happening, the army commanders would be like, well, okay, Gorbachev has actually, helped us. We'll back him against the hardliners who just watched the state atrophy and nearly lost it all. If that 30% scenario wins out, then this, while each of the states might be individually weakened, as, various states do declare soft independence, as I'm going to call it, overall, the bloc will be significantly more powerful as a whole, with each of the members working towards... It's kind of like a Russian version of the EU, except it has... Well, by that point, it wouldn't have a transnational army if what I'm predicting happens, and all the various republics do eventually go independent. But it
communist and authoritarian.
I'm not even sure it would be authoritarian at that point. Maybe the Russian part still would be, but I expect Ukraine would be holding free and fair elections at that point. If it's
no, the entire point of the treaty is that it's supposed to free up the independent states into a democratic system, or based on quote unquote democracy. Okay, that's what it says.
Yeah, but the Soviet Union is technically a democratic republic.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. Quote unquote. I don't know what this actually means.
I mean, this is the thing. It's hard to say. I mean, if it's well handled, this state has the potential to just about salvage the Union and keep it going as a third power to counterbalance the Chinese and the Americans. If it goes, if it goes really well, and the powers that be, and Gorbachev does eventually get to his goal, because Gorbachev has written after the fact that eventually his plan was that we will start holding elections. It wouldn't be totally free, not all parties would be unbanned, but basically the entire gamut of left-wing political theory would be allowed to, campaign. So you wouldn't have, conservatives or that lot, but you would have socialists, communists, syndicalists, various different ideas for how this communist union should be run. That was the thinking. But yeah, like I said, I think we have kind of dug into this. But yeah, just to very quickly round off, expect to see a competitive military remain a factor as long as this union remains stable and at least economically non-stagnant. I'm not saying economically booming, but economically non-stagnant. Because it doesn't have to be stupid growth, it just has to be growth enough for the Russians to keep using their advantages of purchasing power parity over the West. You should Minecraft Watcher ask, what's your opinion on the Type 24 U-boat, and would you ever want to own one? So the Type 24 U-boat is the, and I've just realised I've still got the Graph Spay up. The Type 24 U-boat is the milch cow. It
24?
is, yeah, it's the, it's sorry, not 24, sorry, 14.
No, XIV is 14.
Sorry, 14. The Type 14 is the milk cow. It's the it's the supply sub. It was built to do a job, and it did that job.
Well, he's asking, would you like to own one?
That was going to be my next bit. No, not really. It's cramped, dirty. No, there's no sanitary conditions aboard. There's no real room to actively upgrade the boat to be livable, even despite its increased carrying capacity. No, I would not like to own one.
It depends. Do I have to pay for it? Because if I don't have to pay for its upkeep, then sure, it'll be a nice little boondoggle toy. If I have to pay for it, fuck no, go fuck off.
And if I'm just using it for my own personal usage, then, I don't need to fit like 50 people in it.
Typical gunnery officer asks, opinions on the Omaha cruiser's service in World War II. Why did the USN keep them around, and what role do they have, since other than Marblehead, no Omahas never saw any combat? They are a thing bigger than a destroyer that you could put somewhere to do something. Basically.
They are a valuable low to medium threat
Incredibly
escort
quick.
vessel. And they are great because you can put them in places where you need something that is festooned with 5-inch guns.
6-inch guns.
5 or 6-inch guns.
6-inch guns.
But you don't expect to be meeting anything else that's festooned with 6-inch guns or bigger.
And you can
which
use...
means you
Sorry, go on.
which means you don't have to take a Des Moines or a Brooklyn to fill that role, the relative time periods of those ships notwithstanding.
Yeah, it's also a good way to, as the US did some points in the early war, before the Atlantis were on stream in force, to bulk up destroyer squadrons, to lead them. It's a nice, because it's as fast as anything the US had in service as a destroyer. And it has torpedoes and 6-inch guns. And by the time...
The Atlantis were already out by the time war.
Well, if you don't have an Atlanta, as they sometimes didn't, in the Western Pacific when shit was hitting the fan.
No, the Atlantis were in there. They never brought the Omahas into frontline combat. They've always been used as a East Coast West Coast patrol ship. Even with losing like a whole bunch of Atlantis, they never brought an Omaha up.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to take an Omaha into frontline combat, into first rank combat, but for training for second and third line duties, they're invaluable because I don't have to waste a first rank or even a second rank asset.
They're probably very good to hunt down merchant raiders as well.
Yeah.
Armed merchant cruisers, sure. I wouldn't want to go against an actual full up 6-inch modern cruiser.
Yes. No, you don't want to do that, but
Right. So the next question
else?
is Stephen Mayer asks.
I wish I could carry more bodies.
Would turret
Yeah.
fighters or equivalent be a decent counter to cheap one-way attack drones, or would the complications render this bright idea not a good idea? Yeah, no, that's a bad idea. The correct
Is it?
way... Yes, it is. Because the best way to counter cheap one-way attack drones is anti-aircraft guns.
Okay, Fleet.
Preferably with basic radar, preferably mounted on a truck.
Fleet, I would like you to take a look at the question and look at your answer in the context of that question.
Would turret fighters or equivalent be a decent counter to cheap one-way attack drones, or would complications render this bright idea not a good idea?
Okay.
As I said.
So if I'm using a turret fighter,
Mm-hmm.
then I am presumably trying to defend an air group
Well,
because a
that's-
fighter has shit loiter time generally.
Well, that context should have been included in the question. If the context is not included in the question, then it is not part of the question. I will not artificially add context where it does not exist. That is a bad thing to do.
Okay. In the context of I am going to equip a fighter craft with turrets for self-defense.
That's not... But that's not the question that was asked, Ruinon.
That's the only way the question makes sense, though, Fleet.
No, our job is not to try and make the question make sense. Our job is to answer the question as asked.
Well, no, even with Runon's idea, it still doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's like, no matter what way you look at it, this idea is an incredibly bad one. For self-defense, for defending an air fleet, for defense over an airbase, for loitering defense, this is just a bad idea.
Because Runon, if you're talking about a cheap one-way attack drone attacking aircraft, that's called missile.
Yes.
But also,
If
like...
you are...
Sorry, go on.
If
There's a delay. Like, it happens. It's just the way Discord
If-
works.
if you are working with a fighter that you do not wish to be stealth and has sufficient power, you can put directed energy weapons. You can make use of directed energy weapons, which changes the calculus for this concept a lot. But with going to stealth, yes, my panelists are correct in that having turret fighters doesn't make sense because trying to stealth that thing is going to be a pain in the ass.
And also, at that point, why are you spending that much money? Why?
So you're saying you don't mind adding point defense laser on an F-15? That's basically what you're saying.
Or even a 16. If you
If
you can get enough wattage, yeah, if you can get enough wattage out of it, out of the power plant that doesn't have to go into keeping the aircraft up, there are circumstances and contexts where it does make a degree of sense.
I don't know. This will have to be something. They're gonna have to make a laser small enough to mount onto a F-15 or F-16,
Without compromising.
and it has to be on a gimbal mount.
Yeah, and it also has to not compromise the aircraft's ability to do its job.
Yes,
That part isn't too difficult.
Yeah, it is something that you would have to design into the aircraft from the fuselage up.
But
It's
then
not-
obviously you also have the issue of you're now going to have to increase the amount of sensors on the aircraft to include
Where
detecting things in the rear aspect as well.
we're headed that way anyway.
Yes, but
So
that's
I'm
not
not-
a turret fighter, Sea Dodders. That's a Yak-5. That's just the Ukrainians making use of what they have, not a turret fighter. It's also, if you ask me, a waste of a good training aircraft.
we're headed that way anyway, so it's not really something the requirement for additional sensors is not something I'm particularly worried about.
I find this whole idea of mounting lasers on
Well, it
jet
just
fighters
depends
silly.
on where you're mounting it, but yeah, I'm fine with the idea. It's just this sounds like something that they haven't tried that for a while, or they haven't tried it for a good reason. I'm assuming that reason's most likely something isn't working out.
If your
Yeah,
if your high-end aircraft is in a position where it's going to be engaged by one-way attack drones at the flight altitude it's at, then either A, that one-way attack drone isn't a one-way attack drone, it's a fucking anti-aircraft missile of decent quality, or B, you are a majorly fucked up power that doesn't know how to use your bloody aircraft and you deserve to lose it.
Yeah, but a good anti-aircraft missile is still technically a one-way attack drone.
Yes, but this whole idea
So-
of mounting lasers on aircraft is a...
I'm going
It
to
is
assume
something-
the biggest stopping point at the current moment is that they don't have a laser small enough to mount on a relevant aircraft that we're speaking of.
No C-Dot
Yeah.
as the question doesn't, and we've gone off on a tangent that, again, this is why I don't like adding context to questions when they didn't have it, but to get back to the original meat and potatoes of the question, like I said, the best way to counter one-way attack drones is anti-aircraft guns of various calibers, ideally with basic radar guidance and ideally mounted on a truck.
Basically,
Or just-
C-RAM.
not being in the target envelope of that attacking force.
Well, yes, that as well. I mean, honestly, the best way to deal with these higher-end attack drones that people are seeing come in, like, brother in Christ, the automatic turret is still offered by bloody, like, that 76mm turret is still offered by automatic. As in, like, the land-based version of it. It's a self-contained system. You could literally mount it on a truck and zoom around the Ukrainian countryside, blowing holes in drones at basically anything up to their current service ceiling. That 76 will lob a proximity-fused flak round up to a height where it will murder that drone. Even the new high-flying ones the Russians are fielding. And it will do it cheaply and effectively.
Or C-RAM.
That is not cost-effective. At all.
I don't see how that's not cost-effective.
CRAM is an expensive per shot weapon compared to using a hang on, are we talking about the same CRAM? Are you talking about CRAM?
C-RAM is missile based, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
What?
Yeah, CRAM is missile based, right?
No. C-RAM, I'm talking about the land version of CWIS.
And why didn't you just call it CWIS?
Because
Because it's not called CWIS and it's got a slightly different radar.
Yes, C-Dotters. That. But you also do need a bigger version. Because they are developing drones that are actually out of that thing's attack envelope. You do need a version carrying that big 76. Because the Russians have begun to field one-way attack drones. Yeah, again, same thing. The 35mm is actually starting to lose its punch. Because there are... And again, same thing with CRAM as well. This is why I'm starting to lean towards... Not as the sole arbiter of anti-drone use, although you can use it that way. But you should ideally have a mix of... each team should have 2 CRAM or 35mm vehicles and 2 with 3-inch or equivalent fully automatic guns. So that way you've got your low-level and your high-level anti-drone kit. That gives you good magazine depth because shells are cheap and plentiful compared to missiles. That gives you redundancy. If you lose one of either system, you still have at least one gun in each range able to engage. And because of the way in which these turrets are mounted, the entire system is self-contained. So...
wait.
Yes?
You're free to yell at Sidious.
Why?
I presume you didn't get the ping then.
Oh, you've got to be shitting me.
I'm warning you right now, you are free to yell at him while you do this.
Why am I free to yell at him? Did you ask him not to do this?
No.
Then in
I
that case,
just
I'm
you
not
yelled at
free
him.
One
You
sec.
yelled at him to not do this last week, so I presume you don't want this to happen this week.
What are we doing? What's going on? What is on fire?
Oh, Fleet wanted to play Hoy last week after Ramblings, but Sidious already started one while we were doing Ramblings. And
And
he's
he's
about
doing
to
it
do it again. So I'll leave to you whether I also don't know whether if you're feeling up to it today or not. So
I
that's why
am.
I'm like,
I
you're free
was
to yell
really
at him.
looking forward to it.
You should probably communicate with him next week. But either way,
Fucking
continue with the
Aki, they're
next
not
question.
they're not yelling at you. They're yelling at Twatface. Sidious.
I don't call him Twatface. That's not needed.
Twatface is my
Oh,
default name for everyone.
Hey, it's gender affirming.
So yeah, next is Akazuki. What if the US and the Russian Empire entered a Cold War in 1899 instead of the US and USSR entering a Cold War in 1945? Do you want to know my honest answer? Deep, continuous laughter from Moscow. Because the US is not an equivalent to the Russian Empire in 1899. It's not even close. It's not even
I don't
funny.
know.
Okay.
I don't know. We're talking about the Russian
metric-
Empire that's about to get his ass kicked by Japan in 4 years,
but
right?
it hasn't.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna say three things. One, the circumstances in which Japan boxes Moscow over the years is because Moscow doesn't have any infrastructure that can.
Deal with that. And also, if they're
It is fleet.
sorry,
Is because Moscow doesn't have any infrastructure to service Japan. Two, you can't have a Cold War in the 1900s any more than you already do with great power struggles, because neither side has the ability to wipe each other off the face of the map, even if they try. Neither one has the forces nor the ability to project those forces to do so. It's not until you get nuclear weapons that any country that has them can wipe another country off the map. And three, the U.S. can challenge Russia and is building up to the point where it can challenge Russia. It is just not there yet, but it will continue to be building strength as it industrializes and spreads out across the West and Midwest.
yeah,
Which makes sense considering it's a Cold War. It's not going hot. Nobody's shooting at anyone.
there were no.
And consider that Russia's power is largely Potemkin village at this point.
Exactly.
I mean, I expect the Russians to bulk out their Pacific holdings, especially with in 4 years, which might mean that Japan loses the Russo-Japanese
what?
War, which would be funny.
With what?
What do you mean
With
with
what?
what?
The Russian government the Tsar is incapable of doing that.
No, they're not.
It-
They were in the process of doing it already. They were just slow walking it because they thought they didn't have to rush.
No, they were slow walking it because they face challenge every single step of the way.
Well, yes.
And they're also slow walking it.
It is bold to assume the Russian Empire is capable of commanding most of its territories in 1899.
Delays notwithstanding, let's let Foxo say her piece.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because
Awesome.
the Cold War is laughable because the Americans are developing the power to actually actualize their population, their industrial might. The Russians aren't. The Russians are saddled with an aristocracy who's doing everything it can to keep the country poor and preventing industrialization for personal gain. And secondly, this sort of Cold War-esque scenario exists already in this time period.
Yeah, as Ruben stated, it's great power struggles.
There's one that's almost exactly like this, like the Cold War, except for the ability to wipe each other off the map.
Yeah.
And has anyone heard of the Great Game by any chance?
Yes, the great game between the Russians and the British. That was a Cold War, basically. The two powers never came to blows, but they did everything they could to one-up each other and
With each other.
combat it. Yeah.
Yes.
YouTube Minecraft watcher.
I don't know, when British
Sorry, go on.
officers are fighting alongside the Afghans against the Russians, using British weaponry and British ammunition, leading. The only difference being they're not leading British troops, they're leading Indian troops.
Yeah.
I've heard that in the factor shooting more at times.
Yeah. YouTube Minecraft watcher. What if Britain after World War II never decolonized? Then it becomes a almost bankrupt pariah state, since the only way it's holding that empire together post World War II is through blood. Lots and lots of blood. And conscripting millions of Britons to go and do that killing. Which will therefore result in the country becoming a pariah state and losing basically all of its partners except apartheid South Africa, which will welcome this move. So congrats, I guess. You've lost all of your...
Even then, South Africa weren't liking for it.
Yeah.
Because what did South Africa do in the late 1940s?
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
declaration in which
this
it's
results...
gonna be
Yeah, this results in a Britain that basically is stuck in the 1940s. There is no money for upgrades to the armed forces because the Empire has to maintain a massive conscripted army with basically no trade with anyone else. Because you better believe that the US will go, no trade for you and no Marshall Plan for you. Heck, the British economy and the British state might just collapse under the strain.
The thing is, there's a way for Britain to keep the empire, but that requires America to play ball and to get onto the anti-communist thing a lot faster.
Yes, and it
And
also...
that is
and even then,
happen.
it's keeping the empire in quotation marks. It's basically the British being allowed to decolonize the way they want to decolonize.
Yeah, for Britain to not decolonize, it's going to take a substantial shift in long-term British foreign policy.
Except that you've got to shift prior events.
Yeah. And also, you've basically got... Sorry.
This would be an excellent question if we actually knew what's changed to stop them decolonizing.
Yeah.
Because if it's a case of World War II hasn't happened, and the
They're-
British Empire's in good finances.
They're still decolonizing. They're just doing it at their own rate.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
they're
just-
not decolonizing exactly. They're transitioning to the Commonwealth.
Yes, I know. It'll still be Empire under a different name. I know, and I've made that clear numerous times. You all know my opinion on the British Empire. I'm not even fond of this whole idea of a decolonizing to the Commonwealth because it's still colonialism, and I'm not fond of that as a concept. Despite everything, I'm happy with the way things turned out historically, with it
I'm
actually
not.
being proper.
Not the way Africa turned out.
At least they're free.
Yeah.
To choose, at least they're free to choose their own fate, and we're not involved. That's...
Yeah, I'd much rather have a boot on their
I don't
necks
know
to
about
stop
you're
them
not
committing
involved, but-
genocide on each other then.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice sentiment for, frankly, Fleet, that's a very nice sentiment for people who haven't had to bury loved ones.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very paternalistic. Yes, I'll freely admit that, but also I think there's a lot of graves filled with people who would probably have taken.
Are you
being
three
part of the
seriously
empire
defending colonialism?
when
We're not
it's an
defending
op-
colonialism. It's just that
That is literally what you're
what-
doing.
okay, what basically happened is you told a bunch of 15-year-olds who's failing school to get out of your house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
some of them were doing better than others, but yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
It's one of those things of like, okay, yeah, am I defending colonialism in the face of genocide and ethnic cleansings? Yes.
Knight, I am aware colonialism never died. I'm not arguing that it did. I'm just saying we probably shouldn't be defending the practice.
We're not trying to defend the practice. It's just that we fucked up their place. We sort of left before we replaced the
The problem with the
governmental system there.
problem
Or
But
the
even
institutions
then it's-
there.
the problem with the
it's-
new Commonwealth system is that the nations would not have an independent foreign policy. They would not be free to pursue policy outside of their own borders. They would not be free to leave the Commonwealth. They would not be free to govern themselves in any way other than what Britain tells them to. That is my problem with it. Are less people
Yeah, managed
dead?
democracy.
I can't condone, defend, or put my stamp behind that. Even if less people are dead, it is not a better system. It is not freer for the people involved, even if there are more dead.
Compared to what happened with dictatorships and stuff, I'd say they're freer. And you've got to remember that a part of the proposal for the new Commonwealth was essentially manage democracy until there's a strong enough democratic transition, and then slowly feed them more power.
Oh yes, because the British would totally do that. Honestly, Gov, it would definitely not be
The
pushed
British would
back.
have to.
Would they?
Yeah, because that's what happened with the Dominions. Notice how the powers the British have over the Dominions waxes once democratic tradition starts developing in places like Canada, and they start to be able to govern themselves. British start going hands off and allow limited the Canadian government more and more power.
I suppose.
And the British would
but
do it because it suits the British, because the British need to spend less money on governing these places.
I suppose, but you'll
So if
forgive
you don't
me
have to
if
put the
I'm...
British army there, well,
I know, but just forgive
If
me.
they're
I'm not comfortable with the whole... Look, I had to break myself of this whole defending the British Empire unequivocally bit, and I am very, very hesitant to do it ever again, despite the... You get what I'm saying, Fox. I used
yeah,
to be total Britbong. I have to be very... You know,
there's
I'm
a
very,
time and a
very
place
cagey.
for defending the British Empire.
Yeah, I'm
And
very,
in this
very
case,
cagey.
it's a case of it's the worst of two bad situations.
Yeah, I'm like, I am very, very
Three,
cagey here.
actually.
Yeah, I'm very... Well, yeah, the worst one is the whole the British keep the Empire under blood.
But well, if you're adding that four.
Yeah. That is the
Yeah,
worst one, though.
if the British keeping the colonialism results in the Commonwealth structure like we see Anzac and Canada, then yes, I would actually like to see the British keep the colonial system. If it ends in a more traditional colonial system, please, do I not have to make this choice? Can I get away with not making this choice? Because this is a really shitty choice.
To be fair, that's a choice America would probably be like, how about you don't?
Anyway, so...
That's how you get 1990s Eastern Europe, baby.
Yeah, moving on. Typical Gunner Officer asks, what is your opinion on the J2M Raiden? If the IGN carriers had the J2M in large numbers in 1943, what would the Battle of Philippine Sea look like? There wouldn't be a battle, because the J2M Raiden isn't a carrier fighter. It's a land-based interceptor. It's not and never was rated for carrier use.
When is Philippines Sea?
44.
44, yeah.
They
It
don't
is-
have the pilots.
Yeah, and also
Yeah,
it's...
okay, quickly. Right, while you figure out what I could talk about, I just need to correct gunnery reference somehow. The Marshall Plan did contribute a lot to the UK economy. But unlike with Germany, where it was directly rebuilding, or France was directly rebuilding and stuff in industrial tooling, for the British, it was the Americans provided a lot of money and quite a lot of gold to stabilize the sterling and to stop, because of inflation due to wartime. Once the British economy was demobilizing, it was starting to hyperinflate. So where the Marshall Plan comes in for the British is the Americans throw money and gold reserves at the British and at the sterling to stabilize it, to allow the British economy to start to recover.
And you want to know something? I don't think a lot of people recognize just how much of a risk and how much of a sacrifice this could have been had it gone wrong for the US. It very nearly resulted in them giving up their stability for the British. It worked, luckily, and both sides did stabilize, but it's hard to overstate the selfless nature of the act.
Well, it wasn't really selfless, though.
You get what I mean, though, considering the backlash it
No.
could have had it gone wrong.
Yes. Do you want to know one of the big incentives aside from a bulwark against the Soviets for the Marshall Plan? For the
So
Americans to do the Marshall Plan?
Yeah, so places that have money that can buy American goods.
No.
Okay, what's the other one?
To cushion the effects of demobilization on the American economy. Because the Americans realized that the American war economy was absolutely brilliant during wartime.
Problem in peacetime.
And with almost 0% unemployment. What do you think happens to that economy when you demobilize?
And additionally, to Foxo's point, if you are suddenly dumping millions of very well trained, battle hard by the crucible of war soldiers back into an economy where they are functionally hopeless and feel abandoned and betrayed by their government, what do you think is going to happen to Europe if Europe is economically fucked with
Yeah.
no way out?
Or even your own troops. If your economy starts to crash because you had a massive dip in demand for war material with demobilization, you've got a whole shit ton of veterans that can't get jobs now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And those veterans have firearms.
Yeah.
especially in the U.S.
Yeah.
And it's a thing of, it is, yeah, okay, it's selfless in an extent, but it's also selfish in another extent, because the U.S. populace did not want to get involved in World War II to begin with. They are not going to want to get involved in what we now call forever wars in Europe, trying to stabilize Europe.
Yes.
So it is a risk, yes, but it is also a very shrewd piece of foreign policy, that of both foreign and domestic policy, with an aim to make sure the U.S. does not have to go and send another expeditionary force to Europe.
And it's also very interesting because some of that tends to get forgotten. Is most of the Marshall Plan
Forgive me,
wasn't
folks.
money.
I'm
Was industrial.
I'm sorry,
Can
Foxo.
I just finish this, please?
Okay, you can just finish this, and then we are trying to get back to the point.
So, just for context, most of America's aid to Europe during the Marshall Plan wasn't money and wasn't currency. It wasn't even legal tender like gold. It was industrial goods. A lot of goods that came from factories and the system where factories could apply to be a part of the Marshall Plan to make goods for Europe.
Mm-hmm.
So that they could keep employment.
Yes. Right. So, you should Minecraft watcher. What if the Soviet Union collapsed with the death of Stalin? Think 1991 style breakup. Oh, no. It's not going to be a 1991 style breakup. If the Soviet Union is collapsing with the death of Stalin, it's a full-blown... all the various ethnicities and republics are shooting at each other.
Have you ever heard of China? And have you ever heard of a concept known as a Chinese Civil War?
Oh, and also, by the way, the central government that's trying to hold it all together has nukes and is not afraid to use them.
Well, it depends. Do the branches and do the airfields that control the nukes stay with the central government?
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? But yeah,
I mean, that's also assuming you're going with like an ethnic style civil war. But what if it's just Beria versus fucking Malenkov or whoever?
The problem is,
as soon as the Red Army
they said
shooting,
yeah,
it's gonna fragment.
Yeah, they said they said 1991. So I'm basically saying yes. If we assume those ethnic lines, also assume lots and lots of shooting along those ethnic lines. But also expect the Poles coming east again to reclaim 1939 Polish borders.
Oh, the Poles is going to be definitely trying to kick the Red Army out of Poland.
Yeah,
because at that point they are garrisoned by millions of Red Army troops.
Yeah, and the East Germans will do what the East Germans do best: declare loyalty to Moscow, because that's what East Germany does at this point. It is ride or die. Because the East German politicians know full well the only reason they're not dead is because the Soviet Union still stands.
Yeah, and the West is going to push east if.
Yeah, there is an argument that East Germany could fragment a little bit and have its own internal issues, because they may see that there may be factions in East Germany that are like, fuck it, early German reunification.
But there are also going to be factions in East Germany that are communist, quote unquote. Honestly, we are, Gov. Ignore the red, white, and black armbands. Honestly, Gov, definitely communist, totally communist now. Was only fake loyal to the other guy.
But I really don't think that's going to get past the fact that the West is going to come east.
Oh no! Thing is, no, Foxo. That'll be the excuse. The moment there is a fascist uprising in East Germany, and there will be, the West goes east. That is the excuse. That is the catalyst.
I don't think of that. I think it'll be a bunch of moderates in East Germany inviting the West in,
Yeah.
so that they
But I will point
they
out.
can keep their position.
But I will point out that don't expect a German reunification because the West doesn't want that either at this point.
Well, the West will take it, deny it from the Soviets.
Kaliningrad will probably go to whichever one of the Baltic states or Poles can get it first.
No. I'm sorry, Red Fleet Enclave.
No, it's not got enough strength to defend itself. And at that point, it isn't the Red Fleet Enclave yet. Because it's just the western part of Russia, below where the Baltic states are. It's not an enclave. I was only using it because it's what we know it as now, but at that point it's not. It's just the westernmost part of Russia. Typical gunnery officer asks, compared to World War II tribal J, K, and N class DDs, do you think the Fletcher and previous classes of destroyers are like destroyer escorts compared to these British destroyers? Since these US DDs had fewer armaments, bad torpedoes and sensor suites, and also their focus is more on quantity instead of quality like their British counterparts. Gunnery officer, what are you smoking? None of that makes any sense and matches up with the historical record. At all.
Wait, let me look at this question.
I'll read it again. Compared to the World War
No,
II...
I'm reading it. I'm reading it. We're good. I'm just gonna read it.
Like,
But what's he comparing the tribals to?
the tribal,
Excuse me?
the tribal, the JK... So I'll read it again, Fox. So did you hear it or do you need to hear it again?
Another comparison, British side, but what's the American side?
Fletchers.
The Fletchers,
Fletchers
and the
and-
Fletchers and the destroyers that came before them in the interwar period.
Basically, Bensons and Fletchers.
They are not like destroyer escorts compared to the British DDs. They do not have fewer armaments per ton. They have their armaments arranged differently because the Americans value different things compared to the British.
Well, the Benson does.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, but the Benson is we would like to continue to make it look like we're trying to keep the peace design. The Fletcher is a full fat design, and I'll take a Fletcher. Like, I won't take a Fletcher necessarily over, but if you have this slate of destroyers on the table and you wind up giving me a Fletcher, I ain't going to be disappointed.
Bad torpedoes? That was not the fault of the destroyer designers. And bad sensor suites. Since when do the US destroyers have bad sensor suites?
Early
And
on.
also,
Well, yeah, of course
again,
they do, but they all do. All
the
destroyers do at that point.
Yeah,
issue
like-
with the issues with the 14 are magnified in the submarine force because of how the submarine force operates. The issues for the surface force are minimized, and it's predominantly the Mark 6 exploder is the problem. The rest of the torpedo is adequate to okay. It's the exploder, it's the detonator and arming warhead portion of the warhead that is the issue.
I would also point out that the tribals are absolutely not a fair comparison here.
Well, they only are to Fletchers.
Not really. The Fletcher is a mainline destroyer, general purpose. The tribal is a dedicated heavy destroyer / outgrowth of the destroyer leader concept.
Yeah,
It's
which is also a lot of the design history from the Fletcher comes from.
Not...
Remember, if you trace back the lineage for the Fletcher comes from studies out looking at replacing Wehrmachts.
Yeah. Well, basically, let me
So
put it
both
this
have
way.
the same roots.
Yeah, let me put it this way. If I am getting into a surface gunfight and only a surface gunfight, I'll have a tribal. If I am doing literally anything else, I'll have a Fletcher.
I have a tribal.
You don't have the torpedoes or AA guns to do anything else than get into a surface gunfight.
You got 5 torpedoes.
That's not enough for anything else.
It's good
That's
enough.
kind of...
It's like, yes, if my torpedo's running alone,
Well, yes, but once
if I'm running alone.
you fired a spread of 5, that's it. Whereas with something like a Fletcher, you have multiple spreads available.
I think you only have the one additional spread.
Still,
Yeah,
it's
I
more
think
than
launchers
one.
have 2 launchers. But
Yeah,
And
5
then
for
they start
10.
off with quads instead of quintuples.
Yeah, and with the both these ships, if they are against notional peer opponents, the torpedoes are mainly just going to be there to try and force the enemy into or out of a location. You're not going to try and be getting hits on destroyers with a 4 torpedo salvo.
That's why, yeah, like I said, if it's a straight gunfight, if it's a gunfight brawl against peer opponents, give me a tribal. It is, in that scenario, it is flat out superior. But doing anything else...
Yeah, but I actually... That matters. There's something we need to make a distinction. Are we talking the early Fletchers or the late Fletchers here?
I assume since he says bad senses, the earlies.
Because if it's the earlies, where they've got the god-awful mounts, and we've got the god-awful fire control, and the guns are dual purpose in name, the pre-war ones, I would take a tribal in any situation.
I would. It's
Like,
one of those things of, if you took the early tribals that didn't get all of their through life upgrades, the early tribals are maybe not as much, but they are still a reduced combatant from the late war tribals, especially when it comes to things like radar
and anti-air.
yeah, like radar, yes, but it's like it doesn't. The tribals don't really have any existential issues with their gun mounts or their sensors that they have. And specifically, they're not horribly overweight and unstable. Although that does mean I've got 50 cals for air defense.
I mean, in the nicest way, gunnery officer, you're kind of hating on the Fletchers with this question too.
Yeah, you've
don't get me
literally, gunnery officer, you phrased this question in a way to deliberately steer the panel and the audience towards the answer you want, which is the British destroyers are flat out better. And I am flat out refusing to let it be steered that way.
I mean, there are circumstances where it's gonna depend on the finer details of the question. But if you take early Fletcher, okay, yeah, most British DDs are probably going to win that fight 9 times out of 10 and twice on Sunday.
Are they really the tribals and the tribal derivatives? Like, don't get me wrong, the Fletchers aren't as good when they first come out as the tribals are. Because the tribals have been out longer.
I am actually questioning your statement on that. I'm still trying to figure out what you mean by the god-awful fire control. Because I'm just looking throughout this. The Fletchers never got a different model of fire control system.
Because I mean, I don't know off the top of my head, but it's so much to do with it not. It was about synchronization.
The older destroyers have the older fire control system, and that was jack shit. That was completely shit.
Yeah, I might be thinking of the Bensons there.
But that was pretty much no. That was thrown out by the Sims class.
Was it? Oh no,
yeah,
never mind.
Sims got
ignore
the
what's about fire control.
Mark 37s.
Yeah, it was the Bensons that had the synchronization issues.
Yeah, it's like I say, the Fletchers are just like early Fletcher and early Tribal are equivalent, apart from being in a straight surface shooting match. Both are very good destroyers. And I think again the differences between British and American destroyers are driven by the needs of both fleets. US destroyers are both surface gunfire and torpedo platforms, but are also expected to contribute significantly to the defense of themselves and the defense of their fellow ships against aircraft. That's why they are arranged the way they are. That's why they carry the guns they do. And that's why they have the mounts they have. British destroyers are expected to basically only conduct basic self-defense and basic air defense around them. They are not designed to contribute, well, not at first, to contribute meaningfully to a fleet's air defense umbrella in the same way that the American destroyers are. And as such tends to be better anti-surface and better torpedo combatants as a result.
I mean, but there's so many asterisks you've got to put.
I know. I am being very, very general here, and I am admitting that.
Because the later
Honestly-
Fletchers have more to do with something like a weapon than they do a tribal.
I know. How about the ASW capabilities of both ships? Honestly,
Courses for courses.
yeah, again, the British have their focus on ASW driving them, based on their experiences in the First World War. The US have acceptable ASW, but they don't have the focus the British do, which again is going to lead to... It's going to lead to the British having better destroyers for ASW, because it's part of their design focuses in a way that it basically is for no one else's destroyers.
I think misunderstood me. I said horses for courses because both types were pretty shit at ASW.
I was more referring to design style, but but yes, Foxo is also
Yeah,
right.
but both the Fletchers and the tribals were shite at ASW.
They both
And
have the
that's
exact
because the
same
whole
way.
designs-
Throw shit overboard.
Yeah, and that's if you want to specific because of the whole design.
Honestly,
ASW,
the biggest comparison between the two is just down to the fact that Fletcher's is exclusively designed for Pacific, and which basically means a much larger portion of the ship has to be dedicated to fuel.
meanwhile, you have the tribals that are much heavier built.
Mhm.
So yeah, a tribal will absolutely win a gunfight any time of the day. But you know, if you tell a tribal to try to keep up a U.S. carrier task force for a significant amount of time, it's not going to be happy. Or it's going to start ringing a lot of other oilers being like, so we need to fuel up like now compared to everybody else.
I mean, the tribals are better than most British destroyers at that, though.
Yeah.
Purely because
they're
part of their
big.
design brief forced to run with stuff like battle cruisers.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
primarily because tribals are big.
Right.
They
I feel like,
internally have the fuel, but just
I feel like we have kind of
you're not
done this
operating with
question.
Fletcher.
Yeah, I feel like we have done this
Yeah,
question
pretty
due
much.
diligence. Ruin, okay. Ruin on,
Oh,
Chief
boy.
Technical Deputy or Moderator of also this, Master Transnistrian, Slatherer of Paint upon Innocent Miniatures, Incidental Furry, asks, you are the random CAG on a USN carrier in 1942. You are given 1 Immortal, Invincible, doesn't require fuel or maintenance, C2 Greyhound. What's the maximum amount of trouble you can get in? The aircraft cannot be modified beyond the standard of the current fleet in 2025. Oh, I can't stick floats on it. That's annoying.
No, you cannot.
Oh, I was gonna go and do sneaky special forces shenanigans.
Wait. Are you saying this thing's invincible, right?
Yes, and it
Yes.
and it has unlimited fuel and doesn't require maintenance.
Right. Have you heard of this event called 9/11?
I was
You
thinking
heard
about that
that,
too,
no.
honestly.
No.
You
Hey,
heard
you're the one that
of
said
this
it.
man? Have you heard of this man called Hirohito?
No,
Aw, it ate my spaceship.
no, Foxo, we don't want Foxo. Hirohito's not the target. Tojo is.
Togo.
Tojo
no,
is.
because Tojo moved around. Hirohito stayed in the Imperial Palace.
Yes, but Hirohito A isn't in charge, and B is kind of an innocent bystander in all this at this point.
Fuck no, he isn't.
Well, no, Foxo, you're thinking about this all wrong. It's immortal and invincible. Crashing into the ground won't kill you.
Well, it won't kill the airframe.
Oh, I see. Right, okay, gents, I think I've got it. I think I know. I know I'm thinking wackiness here, but I do actually have things we can do
Yeah,
with this.
go for it. Go for it.
So, first things first, so we'll fly it back to the US mainland. That's the first thing to do. Second thing, is to present this oh god, I nearly said Wunder like a German. Christ almighty, the Wereboos have infected me with a virus. Present this Wonder aircraft to the US government. And basically what it does is, honestly, it becomes Air Force One. It's immortal and invincible. It can fly the US, it can fly POTUS anywhere in the world with literally zero risk of being shot down or intercepted.
It is.
I don't think it has that much range.
No, it has unlimited fuel. It doesn't require fuel. It could go forever. It has unlimited fuel and it requires no maintenance. It can take Roosevelt anywhere he wants to go. It's the Roosevelt Go machine.
Yeah, but Fleet, why not combine our ideas?
We're taking Roosevelt on a wild ride to go and kill Hitler.
No, actually, no, we could 9/11 Hitler.
Literally, no, literally, like,
No, we
no,
could
no,
9/11
Foxo, no, Foxo. Lands outside Berlin in the middle of the night. Roosevelt just sneaks his way in, and as Hitler's making a speech, you hear a disembodied voice from the head, and Hitler's making his speech. It's going well. What's that? Oh shit! It's Roosevelt with the wheelchair.
No, Fleet. I want you to imagine this as the aircraft has Gmod no clips, right?
No. All I can see now is Roosevelt with his wheelchair raised over his head, about to hit
He's
Hitler
lost it.
over the head with it, and just the shocked faces and
I think we
Reichstag.
broke Fleet.
Anyway,
I might get sold to draw
9/11
that.
Hitler.
Oh, I might get sold to draw that.
11 Hitler.
Because I'm just imagining Hitler's doing his big speech, you know?
Oh.
That's just said. Whatever the fuck he said. And then just a Gmod no clipping through the roof of the Reichstag is this plane, goes through him like a blender, flies through the floor, leaves, doesn't say anything.
No,
Live on camera to the German people.
That would be funny. That would be funny. Oh dear.
They do the same to Hirohito.
No, leave Hirohito alone. Go after Tojo. Hirohito is useful for rebuilding the state post.
Yeah, you don't want to go after Hirohito because it's going to completely flatline any resemblance of anti-war / sue for peace faction in Japan.
Yes.
Togo, however.
Tojo. J,
no, Tojo.
not G.
Tojo, however, we've got a very interesting weapon against, because if Hirohito dies, then his successor takes over, right?
He has no successor at the time.
Does he know?
Nope.
I don't think.
No,
That's why he's got
Tojo.
a younger cousin.
No, that's not how the succession would work. Tojo has centralized so much power.
He can't take the emperorship for himself.
No, an apparatus of state, and also he doesn't want to because he is a staunch believer in the imperial cult. He doesn't want to depose the emperor. He just wants to serve him as the most efficient legislator he can, which to Tojo's mind means making sure he does all the legislating all of the time. But the point I'm trying to make here...
legislator, man.
Oh my god. Now it's just Tojo walking around the imperial capital just pointing and going, hey, do you know who I am? I'm the legislator man. I can't. Stop it. There's too many memes today. We've got Roosevelt with the steel chair, and now we've got Tojo, the legislator man.
No. Are you telling me Tojo wouldn't fucking Jojo walk up to someone and go, say my name?
Who are you? You're the legislator man. You're goddamn right.
Never mind, I'm wrong. Akihito is born already.
Oh my god.
If Akihito's born,
Then it would be Akihito.
Okay, all right. Look, okay. I think we've kind of
kill
comedied.
Hirohito through nuclear power plane.
There is.
And then Tojo has to be there for the coronation. Since you know the time and place of the coronation.
Okay, look.
You
I
killed
feel like of course there is the boring one of pushing bombs out the back ramp of the airport.
Why would you do that?
Because it's funny.
And you have Gmod no clip aircraft. Why would you?
Ruinon didn't say it could no clip.
I didn't say it wasn't that physics did not apply either. I just said you can't break the aircraft. You can't shoot the aircraft down.
Well, if you can't break it, it's going to go through anything.
No, it's not.
Yes, but it will lose inertia as it does so.
And eventually it will just
Okay.
stop.
So just 9/11 Hitler.
That is a
Then-
waste of the aircraft because then it will be
No, it's
buried.
not.
Yes, it will be buried in the ground and we can't get it back.
Yeah, but you'd kill Hitler.
That will not
It
stop
might
the
not be
Nazi war
buried-
machine.
It might not be that buried in the ground, and also Hitler does fly from time to time, so you could just
That would work.
kamikaze
Yeah, that would
Hitler
work.
Force One.
Yes, that would work. Or alternatively, do a funny thing. Just pull up alongside with a turboprop. Go, hi, how are you? You can't run? Can't run away? Yeah, okay. Guess what? V1! Vroom, and just pull a V1 on it and just basically tip the Ju-52 over into a stall and laugh hysterically as it goes down.
Except can't really with a Ju-8.
That
Can't really
is
do
kind of
that
what
with
I
those.
said, but okay.
Because do you know why the flipping worked with a V1 fleet?
I know. Look, it was a joke. It was a joke. It was, I had to
Yeah,
have...
yes. So the only reasonable thing is the 9/11.
Stop
Hitler.
it. This is... What is it? Okay, so I'm...
Next.
So
I
I'm...
Next.
it should
So
be
I'm-
monetized for
Next.
fleet.
So I'm going to be known for killing an entire Japanese fleet on a whim. Foxo is now known for 9/11ing Hitler with an immortal aircraft. God, here we go. Typical gunnery officer asks, I should tell you what, do some more funny conversations on how you would 9/11 Stalin, Foxo, while I'm just taking a 2-minute sabbatical. I'll be back in a tick.
Stalin.
Well, Stalin.
Okay, alright.
Well, have you ever heard of this thing called the Red Square Parade? Now, fly up really low altitude and down there while everyone's marching. The Soviets will shoot at you, and then they'll probably end up killing everyone in the process because the Soviets. Anyway, do you want to do the next question?
What is your opinion on the USS Long Beach? Do you think it's the only true AAW platform the USN had in the Cold War before the Tychos came in, and the only true and last cruiser the USN had, since Long Beach had a deep missile magazine, powerful radar array, and illuminator?
Tychos are not a platform. They're a strike platform.
We also need to talk about whether Tychos are cruisers or not.
Tychos are also on a destroyer escort hull, not a cruiser hull.
Yeah.
This question has problems. I like the Long Beach. I am a fan of C Cube supremacy.
I
So you know,
I don't know. I still prefer the Baltimore conversions. Honestly,
I'm fine with those as well, but Long Beach has more missile carrying capacity, doesn't she?
yeah, but she's ugly as sin.
Long Beach is a perfect example of function over form, and I love her for it. I love her angular cube structure. It's great. I love it. Can we have more, please?
No, I'm sorry, but she looks like she went to a cheap Turkish Botox surgeon abroad
So,
and came back with a square head.
are you saying that she looks like a modern Republican politician?
No,
Right.
I'm saying she
I
looks
have
like
returned.
she's from a reality TV show
I have
where you
returned.
have people who are meant to be
Like a modern
attractive.
Republican politician.
Anyway, hello.
I disagree with this wholeheartedly. I find this to be base slander against the almighty C Cube.
I'm sorry, but the only thing almighty about the Sea Cube is its ability to make children's eyes bleed.
Thank you. Something
that's
we
the
both
Hosh.
agree on. No, Hosh is lovely. The Sea Cube is a horrific monstrosity from hell.
Like, I will die on the level of battle cruisers are sexy. Anything that's not a battle cruiser is already working.
Anyway,
up.
right. So, typical gunner officer asks, "What is your
Which fuck
opinion
a battleship.
on the
Battle cruiser.
USS Long Beach? Do you think
We
it's the
were
only?"
just answering this.
Well, yeah, but I need to read the question out.
Go ahead.
True AAW platform the USN had in the Cold War before Tychos came in, and the only and last true cruiser the USN had, since Long Beach had a deep missile magazine, powerful radar array, and illuminators. Well, first of all, she had illuminators, plural. Secondly, no, she's not the only true AAW platform the USN had in the Cold War. As long as it has at least a twin-arm Terrier launcher and an ability, which then of course becomes standard missile, and an ability to direct to both missiles on the arms at different targets, a vessel in the USN is a credible AAW platform. So that basically brings in all of the missile cruisers. That brings in the more advanced destroyers, the US builds, the DDGs that have Terrier.
Isn't there also this thing called the Perrys for ASW?
Yeah, the AA.
It's W though.
Yeah, I'm not talking about ASW, I'm talking about AAW.
Oh, and so I heard that's ASW.
No, AAW. Like I said, like I say, if something has at least a twin-arm Terrier launcher and has the ability to illuminate and therefore direct both of those missiles independently, then it is a credible AA platform in the Cold War prior to the introduction of Aegis. Every US missile cruiser, including Long Beach up to the Tychos, has that capability. And so do some of the DDGs, and pretty much all of the DDGs after Charles F. Adams, I think. In regards to being the only true and last cruiser the USN had, I don't know if I hold with that. I know Dr. Clark likes to bang on about this. It has a cruiser-style hull, therefore, blah, 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 cruiser. I just don't hold with this idea of hull form making a ship what it is.
Okay, what's your argument then? And what's your example of what follows after Long Beach as a cruiser?
Well, first of all, before Long Beach, you have the various... They're called destroyer leaders, but they are very much stepping into... We're getting into this whole transition where the cruising role is very much becoming something that DDGs and, well, what the US then turns into cruisers take over. At that point, they are ships that fulfill that cruising role. And post Long Beach, you've got ships like the Ticonderogas and stuff like the Arleigh Burke. Now, the Burkes. Hang on. I wasn't done.
Go ahead.
Now, here's where things get tricky. This is where things get tricky. Why are the Tychos cruisers and the Burkes aren't? And this is the thing. And I just go...
Politics.
And do you mind? I wasn't...
Go ahead.
When it comes to basically designations for ships post about 1960, once the missile revolution has totally set in and it's locked in stone, designations for ships no longer matter in terms of international designations of what we consider to be cruisers, destroyers, etc. At that point, what matters is what the Navy in question considers that ship to be, and what the Navy in question considers the role that ship is fulfilling. If the United States wants to reclassify their destroyer leaders as cruisers and put them in the cruising role, then to my mind, they're cruisers. If the US Navy wants to reclassify the Tychos from large guided missile destroyers to cruisers and put them into that role, so be it. If the US wants to then have the follow-on Arleigh Burkes be almost as, if not more capable than the Tychos, and still have them classed as destroyers, so be it. In my mind, that's where we've got to, simply because of the way in which naval warfare has changed, and the fact that we haven't had a conflict of a significant sort to lock in ship roles and generate new classifications that better fit the new paradigm of naval warfare we find ourselves in.
Well done, you've actually made me agree with Flay.
Okay.
Anyone else got any counterpoints? Anything they want to say?
Who asked this question?
Typical gunner officer.
I want to punch him.
Why?
He's made me agree with you.
This happens more often than you think.
And it's normally his questions.
This is one of the points where me and Dr. Clark do differ. We haven't quite come to blows over it, but we do differ on this point.
This is very pedantic
Yes.
labeling, so it really doesn't even matter. That's why you haven't really come to blows over it.
Yeah.
If it not cruiser, why does it do cruiser stuff?
Yeah. Typical gunnery officer asks, what if, in this case, it's the US military that is solely in charge of the defense of the UK against the threat of the V1 and V2? What kind of aircraft, weapons would the US Defence Force deploy against these rockets? Would the US deploy P-8s to the UK like the UK deployed their Meteors? Honestly, there is no capability the US cannot substitute. It's got the P-80 to fill in the jet interceptor role against the V1s. It's got legions of anti-aircraft guns that can use VT-fused rounds to replace the legions of British anti-aircraft guns using VT-fused rounds. It does have high-performance piston-engined aircraft to try and fill in the gap until the P-80s are deployed. And also, I don't know why I put the V2 in there. There is no defense against the V2. There is no defense against the V2 at all.
I just want to contest your thing about the Americans have someone that can do all those roles.
Yes.
They kind of don't. Because the shooting star at this point is a flying fireball. And they don't really have a mosquito equivalent.
P-38.
That's got the...
P-38 has the
No.
straight line speed.
No.
Nah.
The Mosses
If the
had to catch
American-
V1s in a
no.
dive.
If the Americans are gonna try, they're gonna use the funny P-47Ms.
Which I don't think are fast enough.
No,
No, they are.
It's going to have to be P-38.
They absolutely are.
Yeah. At low level, actually, they might actually have an advantage over some of the British aircraft because of the ability of their ability
No,
to
not at all. The only reason why the P-47M is a good idea is simply because they could dive fast.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
If
But
it can't deal with it after gaining the initial speed, you're gonna have issues.
But
Yeah,
also,
and
to be blunt, the
was
majority.
the only aircraft the eyes
Yeah.
had that was capable of
But all-
catching them.
Yeah, but also to be blunt, the majority of
Right.
V1s were downed by the anti-aircraft umbrella. Because it turns out if you throw up shells that detonate when they get near a target in vast numbers in front of a target that isn't going to maneuver, you tend to destroy that target.
And to be fair, V1s aren't they're fast, but they're not like that fast. If they could be
No.
intercepted by Spitfires as well, it's,
Yeah, that's the thing. Once
Yeah,
they
Remember, they couldn't reliably be shot down by the Spitfire. That's part of the issue.
yeah, this is the thing.
yes, not reliably, but you can.
Once you untangle the net, so once you move the AA guns to be first point of contact in belts inland from the coast, and then you have the fighters, instead of running around trying to get everything as it crosses the coast, you have the fighters, basically doing what they did historically, which is you have the AA guns as the belt which catches most of them, and any leakers are the responsibility of the fighters, with them being then given plenty of warning to scramble and get up to perform those dives. Then you should have a relatively effective defense net against the V1. And again, as I said, against the V2, if you don't catch it right at the moment of launch as a roving fighter, there is no intercepting it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's a ballistic missile. It moves too fast for the naked eye to see on its final descent.
There was a couple shot down on the way down by proxy few shells.
No, that's not true. That is just...
I'll rephrase that. There's claimed kills on them, as in them
Yeah.
dead in midair when shot up anti-aircraft guns.
Yes, no. I'm sorry, that's not... I don't know who made those claims, but they're talking out of their arse. There is no way to track the V2 on its final descent phase, no way to line up on it with an anti-aircraft gun of the period, and no way to lead a target moving that fast with an anti-aircraft gun of the period. It's just
We are talking
not
the
possible.
5.25 batteries that covered London.
It's just not possible with the technology of the time. It is not possible. I don't care who made the claim. I don't care what gun they're using. I don't care what shell they're using. I don't care what radar system they have. It is not possible
to track in and engage a V2 with a proximity fuse round unless the gun is engaging something else and the round gets a 1,000,000 to 1 close pass on a V2. That is the only way you get a ballistic intercept in terminal phase in this period.
No, it's not.
There is, Foxo, there is no way to track a hypersonic object with 1940s guns.
There is.
There is not.
If it's flying ballistically, there is. It's a mass problem. The issue is doing it reliably, which they couldn't do.
They couldn't
But if
even
it's flying
do it.
ballistically, you know the arc, you can shoot for where you think it's going to be.
They can't. They don't.
And we
the
have
computing.
claims of kills.
I don't care if they're claiming to have hit the bloody moon. They're lying through their teeth. There were no V2s shot down. It's not possible. In order to calculate that ballistic arc, you'd have to know the exact launch position, which they couldn't know. Unless they happened to get exceptionally lucky, which they basically never did.
Which is why it was unreliable.
Moving on.
Akazuki asks,
Trigonometry's been a weapon of humanity for.
what if
Anyway.
Akazuki? What if Chongqing ex HMS Aurora had remained with the Republic of China's navy? Pay issue is resolved and not defected to communist China. HMS Aurora. She is an Arethusa class.
Arethusa.
Oh, the communists have a light cruiser when they run away to Taiwan, and she becomes their heaviest fleet unit. If you want, that's it. And the Republic of China defeats the invasion attempt on Taiwan harder than they already did. So, yeah, in order, these. Yeah, like I said, like it's the unfortunate thing about that question is the Republic of China's losing the Civil War aggressively hard, and changing that to
Yes.
yeah, it's just
Nothing.
yeah.
Nothing major changes.
Yeah.
Ship deteriorates in the opposite side of the strait.
YouTube Minecraft
Ooh.
Watcher asks, what if Britain during the 1920s and 30s didn't close any of their shipyards and docks? Well, that's what happened historically. Britain didn't, because it wasn't up to Britain. These were mostly
Royal dockyards, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, apart from the Royal Dockyards, but most of the losses of the 20s and 30s weren't the Royal Dockyards. Most of them were long-established firms that suffered from lack of orders. The only way you have that not happen is if there are orders. And if Washington exists, there aren't going to be the orders those yards need to keep going. The only option then is basically to ask the British taxpayer to keep more Royal Dockyards open. But at that point,
More ocean liners.
But at that point, it's not going to matter because when you go to resume construction, you're still going to have the bottleneck of gun pits and armor rolling.
Mm-hmm.
No, Seed Orders, I've not missed a question about US infrastructure. At all.
Is there a question about US infrastructure?
Oh? Oh no, I have actually missed that. Yeah, no, he's right. Why was that ticked? Why was that ticked? I must have been going on autopilot. But yeah, as I said, so to very simply answer that question, like I say, like you've still got the problem with gun pits and armor foundries, so you've not really changed too much. What there will be is more capacity for rebuilds and repair, which is going to be massive during the build run-up period.
So you're going to get a lot more of the fleet rebuilt. You're probably going to get all the QEs and both of the... You're probably going to get both Renown and Repulse shoved in, along with all of the QEs that get their modernizations. Heck, you might even get the British side to go full bore and do 3 QEs and all 3 battle cruisers at once.
You're not going to get all 3 battle cruisers at once.
Actually, yeah, Hood would stay out, and then you'd get Renown and Repulsive
No.
to come out as a pair.
You won't get Renown and Repulsion at the same time.
Why not?
Repulse is covering for Renown as a station ship.
Okay, Hood and
Yeah, 3
Renown then.
cruisers, you gotta keep 2 of them up.
Honestly, you can afford to lose 2 for a little bit as long as one of the Renowns is out. But anyway, yeah, like I said, you'd get more rebuilding done. So that's basically the real big change here, which would lead to a more capable RN during the early part of the war. YouTube Minecraft Watcher asks, what if in the 1920s and 30s the United States started upgrading their infrastructure, building highways, upgrading the railways, widening and lengthening slipyards and dry docks? The dimensions of the upgrades are length 1,250 feet, width 500 feet, draft 20 meters. The continued construction of hydroelectric dams and the expansion of the Panama Canal. You do realize you've just described the New Deal, right? That's what you've just described.
No, he's described the New Deal plus the ideal first proposal of the New Deal.
Oh no, that all happened. Railways were upgraded, highways were built. The only thing that didn't was the widening and lengthening of slipways and dry docks.
Yeah, and the canal.
Well, yeah.
To be fair, his statement is 1920s and 30s. If the New Deal started 10 years earlier, basically.
But at that point...
Irrelevant.
Yeah, at that point, you've got a US that's got more infrastructure and a bigger Panama Canal and bigger dry docks. So
You've got a US that's slower to rearm.
yeah, because they spent all that money
Part
on
of the
that.
thing that powers the recovery from the Great, right? A part of the thing that powers the New Deal is the recovery from the Great Depression.
Yep, and
How
if
they
you,
bounced off each other.
yeah,
If you try and do it earlier,
I mean, yeah, during the Roaring Twenties you're going to have work, but then when those budgets will be axed when the Great Depression slams into the US, they'll be the first thing to go.
Oh, no, it just means that the Great Depression gets slammed even harder on the US.
Yeah.
because what's that? The US government has more debt.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then even more people out of work, and who the hell knows what the hell happens economically to the US.
God.
And the US will survive it, but you've still axed their ability to rearm for a while.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, hell no.
Right. Okay.
It's gonna take a while.
Typical gunnery officer asks, and I'm gonna have to do a bit of a blurb after this question has been asked. You'll have to give me a bit before you all answer. Typical gunnery officer asks, do you think that even with its smaller gun size, the UK 4.5-inch gun in World War II is the best dual-purpose gun, and the US 5-inch 38 is just
here we go.
overrated? Since the 5-inch gun has lower muzzle velocity, range, higher arcing shell flight, lower rate of fire, and the mounts have one of the worst traverses of all gun mounts. And also, do you think the US 5.25 has better dual-purpose performance than the 5-inch 38? Alright, okay, I'm putting my foot down. I am all for comparison questions, but not asked like this. Not asked in a way that is so deliberately leading towards a specific outcome. If you want to ask a comparison question, ask a comparison question. But don't ask it in a way that is hyping up one side of that question so clearly and obviously. Listing the flaws of one side and none of the flaws of the other side, and none of the successes of the system you also listed the flaws for. This is the second question you have asked this ramblings that is like this. The previous one was the American destroyers. I do not mind comparison questions. I do not like leading questions, especially not when they're asked like this, seeking a specific answer. Please do better in future. Right, okay. That aside, no, the 5-inch 38 is not overrated. It was a brilliant all-round weapon for all purposes.
There's a
I
reason
just think it gets a
why.
bit overhyped though,
A little bit, but it was a decent gun.
because a lot of
It's-
people tend to treat it like it was God's gift to guns, and it's like
No, it's just a solid gun.
it's mediocre,
Yeah,
but it's mediocre at everything.
yeah, it's a solid gun, and though you get solid, no nonsense weapons rarely in military history, which is probably why it's overhyped, because these sort of solid, dependable, it just works and does its job in a manner that provides no fuss and relatively effective performance in all areas is a rare thing. The 4.5 for the UK is a decent gun, but like I say, it's a decent gun, but like I say, you don't hear so much about it. Again, probably because it was just a reliable, dependable weapon that just did its job.
Thing with 4.5 is just that you're also competing with your 4-inch, your 4.7s, and your
Yeah.
5.25s.
Yeah.
I don't really think it's that.
It's,
You don't really hear a lot about the later destroyers that have them. The deck piercing semi-auto loaded mounts, where the 4.5 became dangerous, are stuff like the battles, the darings, the weapons, and you don't really hear anything about them.
Yeah. And in regards to the 5.25 having better dual purpose performance than the 5-inch 38, no, it doesn't. It has better.
Massive asterisks.
Yeah. No,
Asterisk.
it doesn't. It doesn't have better dual purpose performance. It's a better anti-surface gun and it's a better anti-aircraft gun in the late war. It's not a better dual purpose gun. A 5-inch 38 can rapidly switch from one to the other relatively effectively and relatively quickly. The 5-inch
Go to the
25,
later 4.5.
yeah, the 5.25, yeah, so can the 4.5. The 5-inch 25 is not a better dual purpose mount. It's a better gun in a better mount. What it is a better gun. The 5-inch 38 and its mounts are better dual-purpose weapons. The 5.25 in that twin mount is a better gun. That is the difference. That is why
I wouldn't have got that far. It's the 5.25 in 1945 when it's got its kinks work out. It's got its proxy shells. It's a better gun. It reaches out and touches things further. The mount's fixed. It's as responsive as the dual 5-inch 38. The issue is at that point, the 5-inch 38 is long in the tooth and it's being replaced.
Yeah. And you've got the 5-inch 56 coming in, which is just...
So the comparison for the 5.25 in its dual purpose role, in its functional, high functioning role, isn't the 5-inch 38, it's the 5-inch 56. And that's an equal fight.
especially when you look at the gun and go, oh, hi, 5-inch 56, how are you? I am an automatic gun. You are not. Our.
Well, some were automatic.
Yes.
It's set automatic, but
Yeah. YouTube Minecraft Watcher asks, but yeah, I'm just going to preface it again, and I'm going to back it up with, I'm going to ask my admin, Ruinon, in future, if you see Gunnery Officer asking leading questions like this, when you're doing your question organising, please retract them from the questions. Because I am putting my foot down on this. I am happy to answer questions that are asked, as long as they are asked in good faith, with all sides of the question, if it's a comparison question, given a fair shake. I will no longer answer deliberately leading questions like this, that are looking and fishing for a specific answer out of the panel. Everyone got that? Just for everyone in the audience?
Yep, I'll relay that to Dragon as well for you tonight.
Thank you. YouTube Minecraft Watcher asks, what if the ocean liner Normandy suddenly appears in New York today? France is going to want her back with immediate effect as a museum. Literally, with immediate effect.
What is this Normandy? Because Normandy sounds like something that should be British.
She is the largest ocean liner France ever built.
He's still going to comment on my ultra-nationalism joke.
Yes, I heard. She did hold the blue ribbon for a brief period before Queen Mary took it off her, but she was the largest French liner built. Unfortunately, she caught fire in the war and was not rebuilt after she capsized after being on fire. But for that brief period where she served, and she's also, funnily enough, the ship for which the Normandy dry dock was built that the British then had to destroy, as it was the only dockyard in France that could service Bismarck or Tirpitz.
That'd be just Tirpitz at this point. The British destroyed it.
But yes, but...
I'm guessing you're talking about Saint Nazaire, aren't you?
Yes.
There's one. When is this Normandy in existence?
It is, I assume,
1935.
I assume it's the most famous Normandy.
I'm just
Okay.
slightly confused about.
Yeah, it
Turbo
specifies a
electric.
cruise liner, so...
Is it?
Hang on, did it say cruise liner?
It says ocean liner. The reply says ocean liner, so
Okay, ocean liner.
Is it built-
it's...
Is it built in the 50s or 60s?
No, it's not.
No.
30s.
30s? It's likely going to be scrapped.
Why? No, what? No, why? The French are going to want it back as a museum ship.
Do you have any idea how much the asbestos and lead remediation is going to cost to turn that into a museum ship that the public can access?
Yes.
It's France. They have laws that means they don't have to do it.
Yeah, and also Normandy was a symbol of the French recovery in the aftermath of World War One. She was the peak of French... And honestly, I'm going to say this, despite all the other warships they built at the time, Normandy was the peak of interwar French shipbuilding. She was, and still remains in the eyes of a lot of French people who are aware of naval history, one of the finest ships France ever built. If she appears
Why?
intact in New York today, the French government will be demanding loudly and vocally she be returned to be placed into the Saint Nazaire dry dock, which still exists today, to be preserved and conserved for the French nation as a museum ship.
Okay.
why turbo electric?
They felt it was quieter and caused less vibration.
They're not wrong.
Oh,
I mean, one of the French laws is should technically come under protected buildings,
Yeah, she would.
which you'd have to remove the asbestos or the lead from.
Yeah.
Which is why we see a lot of the old Parisian townhouses still have their original uranium glass windows,
Yeah.
despite the fact they're radioactive. And they're radioactive enough that the modern ordinance of Paris don't allow them. But they get grandfathered in.
So, your typical gunnery
Don't
officer...
you just love civil regulations?
Yes. Typical gunnery officer asks, why did the United States Marine Corps adapt the... I assume adapt? I think he means adopt there, not adapt. Adopt the LCAC hovercraft in the late Cold War instead of keeping on developing a larger landing craft or LSTs. That's not an either-or gunnery officer. They did both. The United States Marine Corps still has, and the US Navy still has, LSTs and large landing craft. The LCAC is designed to fill a role for rapid movement of troops and materiel from ship to shore. It is designed for that role. It did not replace the larger landing ship tanks or the larger landing craft designed for heavy logistics movement and keeping a supply chain to a beach open in the immediate aftermath of a opposed landing or unopposed landing. It wasn't a replacement. It wasn't even a replacement for some of the smaller landing craft. They still exist on certain USN ships for places where you might not want to send an LCAC, or for places where you might want to be something called stealthy when you're approaching the shore, and you might not want to alert, your opponents to the fact that you're attempting to land, say, at night on a quiet beach somewhere by sending 3 massively noisy hovercraft in.
considering what those hovercrafts tends to carry, I don't think stealth was ever a consideration.
You get what I mean, though. There are situations where you don't want to go in with.
Yes, and those situations usually don't involve hard dropping a bunch of Abrams on the beach. Just saying.
Yeah. YouTube Minecraft watcher, thoughts on James Buchanan, 15th President of the United States? Do you want my honest answer? I've heard of him, but honestly...
Wait. Is that Buchanan?
He's...
There's only one Buchanan.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's only one.
Honestly, he exists, I guess. I mean, he just exists.
Isn't he the guy behind Manifest Destiny?
No,
No.
not at all.
That has a lot of roots in the Great Revival movement era.
Because he's president around that time, isn't he?
He's the one right before Lincoln.
Oh, he's the one that was he the Southern States Rights appeasement ones.
Yes, he was. And also, but I think his worst act, and the thing for which he should be remembered for far more, is making sure the Dred Scott case ruled in pro-slavery. Had he not, it likely would not have ruled pro-slavery.
Yes.
That is the one thing that I think, because everything else he did was just lip service to slave states, which was happening anyway. The Dred Scott case is a black mark against the man, and he should be remembered as such for, and it should be the thing he is remembered most for.
What? Okay, you're gonna have to explain that one to me.
Okay, so the Dred Scott's case was the case of a freed.
I know the case. I mean the undue influence that you are describing.
When he was president, Buchanan intervened in the case to ensure that the Supreme Court would have a majority to vote pro-slavery. Had he not done so, there would have been no majority. And there might have been a victory for Dred Scott in the Dred Scott case.
What do you mean?
So he actively got in the way of what's it called? It's abolition? Yes, it'd be abolitionist movement in America.
Yes, but no, specifically in this case, he leant on the Supreme Court in a manner that was almost unconstitutional to ensure that the decision reached was pro-slavery. And not just pro-slavery, but black suppressing. Because remember, Dred Scott isn't just about pro-slavery. It's about
indentured servitude as well.
Yeah, and also, Dred Scott undid several decades of progress towards black emancipation of freed black men in an instant. Progress had actually been made prior to Dred Scott, and Dred Scott undid 3 to 4 decades of work that had been done.
He also undermined the rights and actualization of Asian Americans, especially Chinese Americans in California.
Yeah.
Which led to a large part of their exploitation, especially with the Western railroads.
Yeah. Although it is
which is why I asked that Buchanan.
Yeah, which is what. Although it is worth pointing out that the Western railroads did come to, if not respect the Chinese, at least value their efforts building the Transcontinental Railroad.
Oh, I'm sure they also valued the corpses they left in tunnels.
Yeah.
Because there's a reason a disproportionate amount of Chinese Americans died digging out the tunnels through the Rockies.
Yeah, the blasting of those tunnels was horrific work because they were using black powder. And Central Pacific was rushing, to put it bluntly, because they didn't have the same terrain that UP did on the other side. Building through the Rockies was always going to be hell, but honestly, using the Chinese was the only way it was going to get done. Is that a nice thing? Is that a nice thing to say? No. Do I feel good saying it? No. Is it a sad fact? And did it enable the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad? Yes. Yes, it did.
I mean, that's unfortunate, but fair enough. I might talk about some of their practices where specifically putting Asian Americans who were a couple of days before payroll in situations where they knew they were going to get killed so they didn't have to pay them.
That's, to be fair, while that is
Which,
while that is shit, I would point out that whilst it did happen disproportionately to minorities, white
It happened
workers were
everywhere.
also not immune to it. I'm not saying that it wasn't more of a problem for the minorities because it was easier for them to do it to minorities because nobody cared, but it did also happen to white workers as well. Like, I'm also going to make this clear again. I am not saying it is, there's no... It invalidates the disproportionate suffering of the minorities here, but it wasn't just a... Have I got...
one-sided thing.
Yeah.
Next.
Typical gunnery officer asks, what if in early World War II the USN had fully developed the towed array sonar system? Could they be able to hunt down Axis submarines more effectively than IRL? To be perfectly honest with you, given the quality of sonars available,
No.
not really.
No.
You've not really...
Detecting isn't the biggest issue. Killing is the biggest issue.
Yeah, honestly, detection of the incredibly rattly and noisy U-boats of World War II is not difficult once you get past hydrophones and into proper sonar. And heck, once you've got ASDIC, it's even easier. The problem is not detection. It was always prosecution and kill.
I'm also going to say that the impact of having an effective towed array is not in having the active towed array. It is in the fact that you have the necessary controllers and electronic infrastructure to manage and ingest the data and process it into a meaningful stream for a human operator from the towed array.
Yep.
The electronics that you are going to have to handle that are going to have a bigger impact on the war than the fact that you have them, if that makes sense.
Dragon, it's not going through because you're muted.
Yes, you are client-side muted, Dragon. I suggest you remedy this if you wish to engage in conversation with the rest of the panel.
Indeed.
If you do not, that is your call. But
right, so Akazuki.
Another thing about towed array is it's a towed array.
Yeah, here's the thing. It's one thing to use a ship-mounted hydrophone to physically listen, or passive sonar to physically listen by literally, rotating the hydrophone and listening that way, as you could do as just someone listening to sounds in the water and picking out what you think you can hear. A towed array sonar, basically, as Moe says, because there is no directional nature to it, like you can have with a rotational ship's hydrophone, you're just gonna get noise from all directions with no way to actually point your microphone down line of bearing.
That's not what I meant.
no, Fleet, that's not accurate. The array is exactly that. It is an array of directional hydrophones which allow you to pinpoint the place. The problem is you need the computer hardware to be able to run those directional hydrophones.
Hey,
Not
wait
just
me now.
that.
It's not a sonar issue. It's an information processing issue.
Yes.
Not just that. You are towing an array.
Yeah. Okay.
How is depth charge is usually
yeah, there's that.
dropped.
Yeah, have fun with that.
I too would love to destroy my tow array with a depth
Stuff
charge.
like hedgehogs. Come on,
Yeah.
stuff like hedgehog.
Yeah, and it
Yeah,
would
as I was trying to say, but I wasn't trying to spend audio. Honestly, this is more useful if you give it to the British than the Americans, because of stuff like hedgehog.
I mean, both sides can make use of it, but
No,
the British are going to
no,
make
the
more use
British
of it.
anti-submarine doctrine was much superior throughout most of this period, and they had the better capability to prosecute the targets.
Not before Hedgehog. And
While
Hedgehog-
not,
and
even before Hedgehog, they had better anti-submarine doctrine.
Yeah,
Yes,
even before
but-
hedgehog,
No,
you've got
that
three
functionally
hedgehogs.
doesn't matter if your method of killing is rolling depth charges out the back of your ship.
You would
No, well,
You
it
would-
does still. You can detect them better with the stowed array.
What you would
yes,
do,
but then
is
you
what-
dropped a depth charge into your tow array.
what you would do,
No.
what Dragon, please? What you would do is you would only have the towed array on groups of ships. You're not going to send out one solo ship with a towed array. The towed array, the ship with the deployed towed array, is going to be your spotter, and then then there will be ships designated as the shooter, which will be deploying the actual weapons against the target.
Yeah. You likely have them equipped on a couple of Flower class corvettes, which
Or
are
Black
in.
Swan.
No, you don't have them on Black Swans because Black Swans are the ones you send to prosecute the target, which is why those are the ones you are sending to either throw hedgehog or depth charges. So you have the flowers, which spot, and the Black Swans, which are much faster and more maneuverable, which can go in and engage the targets.
I don't think the flowers will have the capability to have a towed array. I don't think they've got the.
Why not?
Where are you going to store the towed array on a flower? Has it got
Where
the
do you
size
store?
for-
Where do you store the whaling nets and the fishing nets?
Well, and it's not just that; it's the.
You forget how much internal space these things have.
But also, there will need to be the kit to actually manage. Assuming the kit exists, there will need to be the kit to manage what you're getting from the towed array. Can the flowers put that aboard and generate?
Which you can fit on a flower
and generate the power
Like-
to keep it running.
Yeah, like this-
No. You're all missing something. The only ships that you can fit the computing power to effectively use a towed sonar array, especially one that gives enough of an advantage over a bow-mounted or keel-mounted sonar, you're looking at the only ships that have the raw ability to have the computing power and sustain it through power generation. You're looking at a large heavy cruiser or above. So it's a moot point. These small ships just don't have the physical power
But I
generation.
presume going off the question, we're clearly bypassing that.
I don't
We're
know.
Because
hand waving
otherwise-
a lot here.
But
to
Well,
make this
because
happen.
otherwise,
we hadn't decided.
otherwise, this question is it can't be done. End of.
Oh, no, you
Which
can
clearly
put-
is not the answer you gave.
Well, we were discussing it, Dragon. It wasn't.
So,
we hadn't
yeah.
settled on an answer yet. We
Well,
were-
no, the answer we gave
And
is
also, and
there's
also
no
you
point.
don't have to be quite
What?
so aggressive, mate. You can calm it down a bit.
Lead Fleet
No,
says-
I do at times.
No, that wasn't a.
Hmm.
There's no need to get aggressive because it drives everyone else to
Calm
get
down.
aggressive.
Also, that's not a. Trust me. That's not
Anyway,
aggressive.
Calm down.
moving
calm
on
down.
swiftly.
Yeah, moving on.
But still, power generation. Ships need it.
So,
But also, yeah, putting it. But also, just to home in on that, putting it on heavy cruisers would give them a massive ability to actually help defend task forces from being ambushed.
no,
by
it
submarines.
wouldn't. Because you're not going to have them with it deployed.
He's talking about that
Yeah.
dragon.
Do you realize what you're going to do to fleet speed if you have these on heavy cruisers and have it deployed?
I mean,
Well,
it
oh,
doesn't even have
F
to
on
do.
escort duties. Could
I
do
mean,
it.
it doesn't. I mean, honestly, Dragon.
How many times are heavy cruisers on these escort duties
I mean,
so far? So
Quite a lot.
properly?
I mean,
Not
you could just.
really.
You can do
Okay,
what
now let Fleet get his words in.
you can do. What modern ASW warships do: sprint and drift. You can.
Yeah, but fleet, I think we literally covered how these are not modern warships. They don't have the same capabilities.
Yes,
Why
but
can't-
Dragon, we are having to do the hand wavium here because frankly, towed arrays don't work until
I agree.
you get micro
Yes, you have to
But
give
also-
some. Yes, but that's
why-
why I'm asking how much hand wavium are we going to then give? Because at this point,
Why can't
there's so much hand wavium. At this point, these cruisers
Why,
are not historic at all.
why can't a,
Well, no,
hang on? Why can't a, hang on? Just to circle back. Why can't a steam turbine powered heavy cruiser sprint and drift at 25 and 5 knots? When
You want to know why, Fleet? Because heavy cruisers, battle cruisers, and battleships and carriers are fucking loud.
Yes, they are, but
And we're talking, you're needing to do this without stuff like digital cleanup of audio.
no,
Or even acoustic
that wasn't.
cleanup.
No, that wasn't my. No, it was more the physical capability of the ship to sprint and drift, rather than would it be effective. That was more my question.
That's really bad for the gearing on them.
This is bad for the propellers, the shafts, the gearing, and you're putting undue stress on the hull.
Fair enough. That's all I wanted to know.
Right. Think about it. Right. So, do trains have gears?
Not normally, no.
Okay. Do you want? I'll use HEV as an example there. But for a lot of heavy vehicles, actually,
No, Foxo, I get it.
correction, not for HEV, but
No,
do you want
I
to change
understand.
gears as least amount of times as possible?
Yeah,
'Cause
I get
even
it.
with full wet clutch,
Yeah, I know. I understand. Like, you don't have to explain it. I actually got it. As soon as you said the gearing, I realized. No. Heavy cruisers pretty. No. Move on, fleet. I can hear the grinding in my head. No, moving on. Akazuki asks, "What if a Mark 48 torpedo suddenly appeared in the Department of Ordnance building during the design period of the Mark 14 torpedo? They're not going to be able to replicate it.
Cool, they can't build it.
Yeah,
There is so
basically.
much
Which one's the Mark
electronics in that
48?
thing.
The modern,
The
it's
modern one.
it's the generation for the current
Mark 48 ag cap.
fuck's sake,
Mark 40
torpedo.
Microelectronics. Good luck.
Yeah, no, it's not. Yeah, I'm sorry. That is a really open and shut question. Nothing happens. Like, it gets examined for like 40 years and like, oh, the thing we're building now is the thing that appeared earlier. And then it gets dug back
It's a
up from
very
the...
small torpedo as well.
Yeah.
For the era.
Yeah, they're the general concepts of the torpedo are not going to be out of the ken of the Bureau of Ordnance at this point in time, but the manufacturing in no way exists to even begin to replicate that torpedo. I think
Yep.
the 48s are electric torpedoes. They don't have the
Yes.
battery technology. They don't have the electric motor technology. They don't have the acoustic homing technology. And they don't have the acoustic sensor technology to even feed the homing unit.
Yep.
Would they even know
Microelectronics go burr.
Yep.
Well, they
So-
don't go burr.
I don't think
The-
they would even understand that it's a sonar in the front of this torpedo.
Probably not, no.
They can probably do that because the basic physics of acoustics are known to them because they have hydrophones.
Yeah.
But it will be an electric receiver.
Yeah,
wouldn't it?
it will be a pure digital system, but it's still probably going to have the same physical construction of input.
Yeah, and the worst thing is, like,
I guess.
I just realized something. When I saw Mark 14, I was like, oh, 1939, and then I looked back through the question. Went, no, design
No.
period, end of World War One, bugger. Bloody hell! They aren't gonna know what to make of this thing.
You could make an argument that late 30s don't understand the basics of an electronic hydrophone. World War One, they're not.
Yeah, it's what they may possibly get out of it is the concept of wire guiding,
That's already a thing.
especially if it's a Mark 48 and not a Mark 48 ad cap. It probably still has the copper telephone wire for the wire guide. If it is a more modern one that likely has a fiber optic cable for its wire guidance, they're going to have no idea what this clear silicon material is and why it's there, because it's obviously too thin to haul the torpedo back in. But how the hell are you sending data through it? So the wire guiding could have the idea of wire guiding a torpedo could have some interesting knock-on effects, but beyond that,
Well, it's curious. The wire guiding thing has been around for quite a long time at this point. Because you see stuff like the production of Whiteheads, the people who made, the guy that designed them, was also did experiments with wire guiding at that point. It's a mechanical reliability issue.
this may give them some shortcuts for the mech reliability.
Do you know? I've just realized something.
I don't kind of, but for that wire guide, they're going for mechanical movements and radio signal versus digital.
Yeah. Do you know what? I've just realised something. We haven't seen Alex for a few ramblings. Oh well.
So
was
was from
on
literally
Monday.
last time.
Did we? Was he here on Monday?
It was here Monday. Yeah.
Yes.
Are you alright?
Probably not. I've been working all week. Brain's a bit fogged.
Yeah, remember he mostly turns up on Mondays, not Fridays.
Oh well.
Yeah, because he has a more arduous schedule on Fridays and therefore cannot attend.
It is nice to be able to. I do love
Also,
Alex,
Saturnine tomorrow, Runon.
Have a good
Does your
run
wallet
ramblings without you.
Shouldery boys. Shouldery boys.
Do not
Shouldery
mention
boys.
Saturday for one fucking rambling.
Shouldery
No.
boys. Shouldery boys. Shouldery boys.
Anyway, so
Yeah, that's
Ruinon
true.
asks, what would induce someone who was not previously furry aligned to pop into someone else's live stream and randomly announce that they are a furry? Alcohol, probably. I would guess.
think you said you
Alcohol,
weren't-
drugs, or a mental breakdown.
I think you said you
Oh.
weren't drunk at that time because I explicitly asked you if you were drunk.
Oh yeah, I did that, didn't I? But also, I'm surprised.
Yes, you
But
did.
also-
I don't know why.
But also, hang on, not previously furry aligned. Hello, like, come on, that's been
Isn't
that's
your
been.
persona a horse?
No,
That's-
you've denied this multiple times, Fleet.
I thought it was an open secret for years.
Yeah, but
More that
still
you remain
denied
very closeted about it.
It's kind of that I'm not exactly what you would call a traditional member of that group. I'm not into the whole fursuits nonsense.
Fine. Fleet, I think you just insulted 90% of that community.
Well,
Yeah, most of us aren't.
Yeah, most of us don't have fursuits, my guy. All the furries I know, none of them have fursuits.
well, there we are then. Hang on, isn't that kind of? Hang on, am I missing something here? Either way,
I don't know what
Yeah.
to say. The one with the first
hope
is the
so.
one that has way
Look,
too much
obviously-
money in their bank account.
Having a persona is common. Having a fursuit's fucking rare, because those motherfuckers are expensive.
Yeah, you're looking at a fursuit is going to run you the same cost bracket as a fully rigged VTuber.
bloody hell's bells on a handbasket.
Mhm.
It's almost getting to the point of new car money.
Christ on a
Yeah.
Sometimes it is new car money, depending upon
But-
exactly
but-
what specs you're getting.
But don't worry, it's been proven that most fursuits can stop bullets.
The fact that keeps happening is a horrifying thought, and I really hope.
but there's also on the lighter side, there's been a couple gun tubers did a test that it's like a well-made fursuit's got enough material it can stop most pistol calibers.
Nice.
Most.
Well,
there are more
well,
furries than you think.
well, Mo, they found out it couldn't stop 50 Action Express.
Not a lot of things can, to be fair.
And then, of course, let's not
A lot
forget
of
that
rifle body armors can't stop
Don't-
50 Action.
don't
Exactly.
furries like hold up the internet? Isn't there like one guy in a rural like post
Yeah,
who was holding up the
The-
internet?
The IT community is disproportionately furry because the IT community is disproportionately autistic. And I don't mean that as an insult to autists. I mean that in the fact that autistic people generally don't care about social norms and do what feels good.
Yes, yes, we do.
which is why I'm flamboyantly one.
I am quietly one.
Autist, that is.
That's why I'm not an IT.
Foxo, are you telling me that you're not a furry, Foxo? Goes Foxo.
Look,
The number of tales says otherwise.
look, all I'm gonna say is,
We have fun.
no comment. I plead the fifth.
We have fun
Get
here.
fucked,
British.
Yankee.
You don't have the fifth.
Get fucked, Yankee. I plead the fifth.
We have healthy discussions here on Ramblings. Gonna
Is your
have to ask-
persona a horse flea?
Healthy. Sure.
No,
Healthy.
I've got to ask what's your persona?
I'm not telling you live on stream.
Come on,
Thanks.
we'll look at commissioning art for it. What's your persona?
We'll grab the next question, Foxo, and then make sure to rate them over the goals later.
Yeah,
And then,
typical.
and then reveal it on the brew ships.
Yeah. Typical gunnery officer asks, opinions on the Albany class cruiser. Even though it's a conversion missile cruiser design, do you think it's one of the last true guided missile cruisers alongside Long Beach, since it had a large size hull, adequate missile magazine, and powerful sensors? I mean, I will literally direct you to my previous
question.
answer that I gave about Long Beach and the whole thing about designations being what navies say they are now rather than based on capability, because of the way capabilities overlap between ships with different designations nowadays. The example I would give would be a modern Tycho and a modern Arleigh Burke. Look at the capabilities both ships have, apart from the Arleigh Burke's a missing 1 5-inch gun. But apart from that, in terms of VLS throw weight, sensor fit, general purpose capability. If you look at what a Burt can do and what a Tycho can do, the gap is now so narrow that they are called what they are called for reasons of Navy classification and role setting, basically.
To be fair, the Albany era is much more clearly defined in terms of what is a cruiser, what isn't.
But I was just repeating.
So yes, Albany is definitely a cruiser.
Yes. But she's not one of the last true US guided missile cruisers, because US guided missile cruiser development was a long-running process. And they built lots of them during the Cold War.
Indeed they did.
Box ship, just supremacy.
Oh, you and your bloody box. YouTube Minecraft Watcher.
Get back in your box, Ruinon.
Yeah. YouTube Minecraft Watcher asks, what if Obi-Wan Kenobi from Star Wars appears on Earth today? Which one? Young Kenobi? Clone Wars Kenobi? Just Ender Clone Wars Kenobi? Or Old Man on Tatooine Kenobi? Because those are multiple different Kenobis.
The amount of hello there reference.
Just a bit.
Honestly, it depends. Is he coming to a time where Star Wars exists?
It says today, so
it says
I
today,
presume today.
Okay.
The problem is none of those Kenobis, realistically, are going. He's going to become a superhero vigilante. That's what he's going to become, because none of those Kenobis have an incentive to rule.
I don't think you can do that, Ruinon. I think you'll just go find somewhere to live quietly.
Yeah, like
He'll probably watch Star Wars because he'll wonder why.
Also, remember, he can't speak any of the languages.
Well, depends.
Galactic Basic is not English.
Plus, Miss Kenobi, he's too lazy to do anything unless he has to do something about it.
He'll learn languages pretty quick, because people learn languages pretty quick when they have to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we'll learn enough to.
He also has the Force, which is
does he?
The empath.
Midichlorians don't exist.
The empath abilities that he will have as a trained Jedi are going to massively accelerate his ability to communicate in our world.
That requires the Force.
There's no Force, so he can't use those abilities.
We're assuming there's no Force, right?
Yeah, there is no Force, I think.
Well, then the question is kind of pointless, isn't it? Because if I'm just going to take the man's consciousness...
But we're bringing the man over with his lightsaber, so he has the funny, swishy MacMuffin 5000.
Yeah, but don't they kind of also run on the Force, though?
No.
Kyber crystals.
Nope, they haven't run on the Force in thousands of years.
Okay.
They are
am I thinking of Old Republic?
You're thinking of Old Republic?
I'm not pushing.
No, you're not. You're thinking pre-Old Republic.
It depends on the exact continuity too, because one of the reasons why the lightsabers were predominantly, if only used by Force sensitives, is in some of the older lore, the lightsaber creates a lot of really weird and random oscillations, which you have a hard time adjusting for if you are not Force sensitive and don't have the mild precognition that comes with that.
Okay.
Right.
So, while we just give Obi-Wan Kenobi an existential crisis when he realizes the Star Wars universe.
Yes, probably.
Yeah, essentially, if you port Obi-Wan over without the Force, it's okay. It's kind of a okay. There's two Owain McGregors in the world now. Fantastic.
Don't give me hope.
Hello there.
Okay.
Look,
Listen, I have hope that there's a Raven Guard. I have a hope that there's a Raven Guard codex in the works right now. I exist to give people hope, just so we can watch our IPs take it away. Wait a minute.
Because all I'm going to say is, as the president's very soul straight woman here, two Owen McGregors in his Silver Fox era, pure heartthrob.
Steady, girl, steady.
I
What?
really want to make a comment here.
See, I wouldn't get rid of Dragon for him, but.
Thanks.
So, typical gunnery officer asks, and again, it's another one of these questions. I'm going to answer it because it was asked before I remember pronouncing it, but again, in future, be better. Typical gunnery officer asks, what's your opinion on USN fleet subs like the Gato, Balau, and subsequently Tench class? Do you think their crew comforts and electronic suites aren't as good or sophisticated for the time, unlike the British fleet subs with the T class or the Amphion? The Gato, Balau, and Tench class are better fleet boats than the British subs, without a doubt.
Their submarines, all their amenities are shite. Modern submarine amenities are shite.
Yeah, but in terms of crew comforts for the era and their electronic suites like their torpedo data computers, they were best in class. Because they could afford to be because of the sheer size of them. They were very roomy.
They had a non-chemical toilet.
Yeah, they were very roomy, sizable boats. It's not surprising that they were the best general-purpose fleet boats of the war.
I'm more
The
interested in
the T-class and the Amphion. Well, the T-class were ambush predators and were built very much with that role in mind. And the Amphions... hang on, let me remind myself on what the Amphions were.
just
so I don't put my
confused
foot in
about-
it.
I'm just confused about the fact that he chose T-class pre-war and the Amphion post-war.
Yeah, and also, yeah, the Amphions are not a fair comparison. Apart to anything perhaps apart from the Tenches.
If you're talking amenities, they are. Because all submarines have shit amenities.
Oh, yeah, but...
Not shit, they're not really, though, because, well, yeah, they're bad. It's just the errors in these ships are a bit too different.
Yeah, but the fact that the Tench class boats, well, are later boats, but the fact they are still comparable to post-war boats in terms of amenities like the Amphions does show how decent the Tench boats were. Yeah, the, Look, I am talking...
Does it show the American boats are good, or is it just their submarines are shite?
Well, no, we're in the submarine amenities, area here. We're talking comparison between subs here. We're not talking,
Yeah, and saying that they're equal to the Amphions isn't a good thing.
Well, I don't even know what the Amphions have. But anyway, look, no, the T-boats are not superior to the American boats in anything other than forward torpedo salvo. And the Amphions are post-war boats, whereas all the classes mentioned for the Americans are immediately pre, during, and just post-war boats. So
Actually, no, the T-class might be slightly better on the amenities front, though. Because they have a higher bunks to crew ratio.
there is that, true. But I mean, of course, you do have the, in terms of attack generation, the torpedo data computers on the American fleet boats are pretty good stuff to have.
Yeah. But as well as saying that, because the question wasn't it more specifically about the amenities? Or not?
No, it was crew comforts and electronic suites.
Yeah, crew comforts. So basically amenities.
Oh, but there is one thing: air conditioning, which the American boats
Yes,
had.
but that was only on the surface.
True, but when you submerge,
And-
you've got the water.
Yeah, and that was if it worked, which it often didn't.
It
And the
works.
submarine had to be fully surface full.
Yeah. But yeah, so again, like I said, in future gunnery officer, do better. With the questions. But again, I've already said
Or
this
don't.
already.
Your call.
Yeah, as Ruinon says. You should Minecraft watcher. What if Frederick the Great appeared today?
Frederick.
I mean,
Okay.
lots of interviews, I guess.
Jem's got a legitimate claimant to the German Empire
Yeah, he does actually.
because the Kaiser Wilhelms and Van Holzen does claim lineage from him.
Yes.
Yes, but does he have a concept of Germany as
No, he does not.
nation.
He does not. He has the concept of Prussia. The whole thing with Frederick the Great was Prussian nation building, turning Prussia from a kingdom, sorry, not a kingdom, a principality within the Holy Roman Empire to a kingdom within the Holy Roman Empire, which is when he became the king in Prussia, to a fully independent sovereign kingdom, the Kingdom of Prussia, and he became the king of Prussia, not the king in Prussia. That was the whole development that Frederick the Great pushed Prussia through. It was the nation he forged. It was the nation he forged with blood and iron. I know it's corny, but it's true.
I guess the first question would be, what is your opinion of a united Germany?
Yes. Although
States.
Although, depending on what age she is, he'll be able to give a lot of insight into the, period of, what actually happened and relate a lot of the battles. Like, military historians are going to be salivating over his accounts of his various engagements. And, of course, he will take great delight in looking at the map and going, oh, Austria's tiny, and you're telling me this German state that grew out of Prussia is huge? Literally, Frederick the Great is literally dancing around the room going, fuck yes, in the end, we won, we won.
He's going to have an absolute brain aneurysm.
I know he is, but for the brief moment before, he's going to be like, yes, we won, Germany in the end is bigger, yes, we won.
A, he's going to look up where Prussia, and B, he's going to notice this massive pinkish red blob in Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
Indeed, most of Prussia is Polish now.
Yes.
I remember he's from the point where he's one of the few rulers of Prussia who saw Poland before it was partitioned.
Yes.
Well, before it was murdered. I think he was after the first partition.
Yeah.
But the Commonwealth still had life in it after the first.
Mm-hmm.
After the second, it was dead. I need to ask Clark about that, actually.
Yeah. So, next question. John South asks, as part one. Okay, there we go.
Turning USS Lafayette.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I've got it. Okay, so.
Yeah.
John South. Originally, the US planned on turning USS Lafayette, the former SS Normandy, into a carrier in 1941. If done, how much would a 110,000 foot long, 120 foot wide, 80,000 ton CV in World War II affect carrier development? And would the French get a pack post-war? And how much would a CV, while a conversion the size of a Kitty Hawk being French, change arguments around the multi-class and other post-war RNCVs? If you want the honest answer, it wouldn't affect carrier development a jot, and it wouldn't really cause any arguments, because despite her size, she would be monstrously inefficient.
That's going to be a long rebuild as well.
Yeah, liner conversions are pretty much as a rule the worst way to get a carrier and result in the least efficient carriers that are built.
Use an oil tanker instead.
So Normandy, when she comes out, is going to be an 80,000 ton monster that costs a metric fuck ton to run with unique machinery that can carry as many carriers as perhaps a Yorktown on a good day. There's a reason why it wasn't. There's a reason why the program wasn't followed through with.
Honestly, the big question about the 80,000 ton is how many of those tons actually dedicated to batteries.
And her turbo-electric propulsion. This is the thing.
That's going to waste so much because,
yeah.
Oh my god, turbo-electric for a 32-knot ship.
Yeah.
Oh god, the amount of batteries.
I know.
Well, what was the ratio for the Lexingtons?
Well, the Lexingtons, it was planned into the design, so they had the legs already on them. With Normandy, she can continuously maintain 29 knots, which I suppose is acceptable. But even so, it's assuming that she's completed. She'll be completed just in time to be sold back to the French, because the US are gonna take one look at her and go, "I have a Midway, which is smaller than you, cheaper to run than you, and will have a longer life than you. So on the plus side, France has a carrier, but do you want to know the honest answer? The British are going to take one look at it. They're going to look at the carriers they're currently building, the Audacious class, and they're going to go, these are better than that, because they are.
Are they the size of Kitty Hawk?
If she's completed as a carrier, she will be about 80,000 tons. So yes, she will be just slightly larger than the Forrestal.
Heavy.
She'll be slightly heavier than a Forrestal, but she won't be nearly as capable. And she definitely won't be able to have the structural strength to take anything like an angle deck conversion.
I question if she has the structural strength to take a flat deck that
I know.
long.
Like I say, there's a reason. There's a reason why the design process was long, confusing. At the end of the day, they basically decided, wait, she's a large, fast liner. Why are we trying to convert her into a carrier? She's more valuable as a troop ship, and hence the conversion to troop ship began. Typical gunnery officer asks, thoughts on the Russians planning to scrap the Kuznetsov? Are they going to build a replacement that works, or even with nuclear propulsion? As I have said in brew ships and on ramblings over the past few weeks, the final decision to scrap Kuznetsov hasn't happened yet, officially. But, given the way things are going, it's likely. This means either one of two things. Either, the unlikely option, the Russians are willing to give up on having fixed-wing aviation in the Russian fleet, which I consider to be unlikely, or, the more likely option, the Russians are planning to leverage the large ship design construction they have gained through building their two 40,000-ton helicopter landing ships to leverage that into the construction of one or two new Stobar conventional carriers of between 40 to 60,000 tons. If you're me, you lean more towards the smaller end of that scale. If you're Dr. Clark, you lean more towards the larger end of that scale.
And I doubt they have the capability even to do that.
And as to whether or not this hypothetical potential new vessel will work, the vessel will function. The question is, will the vessel function efficiently as its Western peers? That's really the only question.
Yeah.
So
Even then, they
how
don't have a
long
place
it's
they
going to
can
take for them
build
to
the
build
fucker.
those things.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
I could see it as a temporary loss of fixed wing aircraft capability, eventually leading into we have permanently lost it.
Yeah, the thing is, they're not going to build them in Ukrainian yards or where they're currently building the. They're building one of the. Where they're currently building the helicopter carriers. They're going to be transferring that experience elsewhere once those LHAs or
aren't they being made in Crimea?
Yeah, they're going to transfer that experience elsewhere, because they're going to there are Northern Fleet yards of the size required that have been in need of work for some time, and yes, there are. I was talking with Dr. Clark. I was talking with Dr. Clark about this. There are yards that serve Northern Fleet that have been in need of work for some time. There is the yard space to do it. It's just a matter of them deciding to actually do it. Whether or not they will.
I was going to say, just because there's space does not mean they'll do anything about it.
No, I know. Like my statement was there is space, and then again I had to qualify that with, whether or not they will is a different matter, and whether or not there is the will to do it. Like, it is within Russia's capability. Like, they are building these two helicopter combatants. From what we can see from satellite images, they seem to be on track to, if not meet, at least not overly exceed their launch and commission dates of 2028 and 2030, respectively. So...
That's slow.
Oh, no, it is. But then again, bear in mind, this is a Russia that's under sanctions, and these are the first large ships the Russian Navy has built in 3 decades. So,
I'll be honest, I don't see them finishing by then. I see a number of issues breaking out. Or they'll launch on sea trials and go, yeah, no, this doesn't work. We need to put them back in.
It's possible, but again, with this, it's impossible to know. Like I say,
Yeah.
Which is why I question their ability to make a full-size aircraft carrier.
Well, if they can build a 40,000-ton ship Like, the building's not the problem, it's what happens once they start construction and then finish them. And also what spec they come out as. It's like I say, the
It very
capability,
does matter.
the capability, the industrial potential, and the need are all there. The question is the will and the will to make the decision to cut the steel there? And is the money there?
I think the money is going to...
The money may not be there.
I think the money is going to be your biggest problem, because
I know.
As much as we like to take the piss out of the US, and I would argue even the UK, about how expensive in terms of like an absolute value expense, the Russians are worse, because so much more of it goes into unequivocal corruption.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
But
the Russians.
It's an aircraft carrier hull is a lot harder to make than a helicopter carrier hull. Like, you can't contest that.
No, I can't. But I will also point out there are avenues that they can use to get some experience and first-hand knowledge on how that's done in the modern era, especially with the size of carriers they want to build. The Indians in particular would probably be willing to help with some design, with help letting them look at the Vikrant that they built recently, given the close working relationship the Russians and Indians have in defense procurement and development.
Yeah, the relationship that's been collapsing the last 5 years.
Yeah, and
after the Indians pissed them off with
buying
their carrier off the Russians.
I
That
doubt
relationship.
I doubt that they're going to get much help from China, because
Well, yeah, China's not an option.
China has
They are
been
never going to help.
making expansionist noises towards Russian soil, which is never a good idea.
No.
Well, it's never a good idea for long-term peaceful relations with the country in question.
Like I say, I am not making any firm predictions. I refuse to. Because there is no way to know. Absolutely no way to know. But, like I say, I can see the potential. I can see that the need exists, the manpower exists, the experience exists, and the yards exist. All of those 4 things exist. And that is basically all that I can say with firmness. Anything else beyond that is basically me making up a what if scenario or imagining things. That's all. That's it. Like, personally, as I've said, going for a pair of 40,000-ton carriers would at least enable them to use MiG-29K to maintain basic fleet air defense and Ka-31 for basic airborne early warning. But like I say, that's the logical, sensible, smart thing to do. But this is Russia we're talking about, so God knows. Typical gunner officer, opinions on the OH-58 Kiowa. Do you think it's the best observation and scout helicopter of the 1980s compared to Gazelle, BO-105, and Westland Scout? Well, Westland Scout is at the bottom of that. It is at the bottom of that for a reason, because it is the oldest of those platforms, and is the worst of them because of it. However, comparing Kiowa, Gazelle, and BO-105, they're all fairly comparable. The only exception is Gazelle, with its inability to carry slightly heavier weaponry, with the trade-off of being faster and more maneuverable and a smaller platform compared to the other two. So, for example,
We skipped the question.
No, we
didn't do the torpedo question.
we'll get. Okay, we will come back to that.
Sorry, that was just confusing. I was like, wait a moment.
No. Thanks for letting me know. Yeah, I will. We will come back to that.
And the question of what was that mark again?
But yeah, so like I say, it's basically, they're all, so Gazelle, Kiowa, and BO-105 are all good scout helicopters. Where Gazelle falls behind is when you look at actually arming them for light strike. Kiowa and BO-105 have the capability to carry the latest generation in the 70s and 80s of wire-guided ATGMs. I don't know if Gazelle can carry hot or tow.
Gazelle can.
Well, in that case, then yeah, they're all basically equivalent.
British Army Gazelle couldn't, but the French ones can.
Well, in that case, then yeah, they're all basically equivalent. It's horses for
The
courses.
British one can't carry them because it's out of service.
I
And
don't
I
recall
can't find
Kyle
anything
was
saying.
carrying tolls.
Pardon?
What's that?
I don't recall Kyle was being capable of carrying tolls.
I thought they could.
No. Yeah, no, I don't think so. The only thing that's mentioned here so far is a minigun.
Fair enough. But yeah, a scout helicopters, it's all horses for courses.
Pretty much.
Don't get me wrong, they're not Lynxes, but they're good enough.
Yeah. Well, I'd argue that Lynx is worse in a scout helicopter role than all of these platforms owing to the increased size of the Lynx. Apart from maybe BO-105, which is an equivalent size to the Lynx. But Gazelle and Kiowa are much smaller helos that have less radar cross-section for what that's worth, and are less visible and are more nimble. But Lynx does have straight line speed on its side and carrying capacity.
And it can fit some really nice recon and camera pods
True.
on it.
So, you should Watcher, what in the Pound's opinion was the best torpedo of World War II? Long Lance and its derivatives. Despite the issues with liquid oxygen, once fired, Long Lance was without a doubt the fastest and, in terms of bang, decent hitting torpedo. And also throughout its service, it was a generally reliable weapon that served the IJN well.
Or not well, depending on if you're on the friendly fire side or not.
Well, yes, but you get what I mean. The torpedoes worked as intended in that particular scenario. It's just they just hit the wrong thing.
Yeah, so I'll go for the later British 21-inch torpedoes.
Fair enough. Solid
Mark
pick.
18th, I think, is it?
Solid
Was going-
picks.
And this is purely because while the strike range of the Long Lance or the heavy hitting nature of the Long Lance, or can't do some of the funky shit the late war American torpedoes could do, or the German torpedoes, they just worked most of the time. They were reliable, they got the job done.
Mm-hmm.
And had their fuse issues fixed relatively quickly. What more could you want? Oh, and they wouldn't blow up if someone looked at it wrong.
And my mic works. Yeah, I was going to say the same with the British 21-inch Mark 9, which is what's used during the war.
Yeah, I would go for the Mark 14 if it wasn't for the early problems of the Mark 14. It's the Mark 14.
The reason I went with the Mark 9 is the Mark 9 just worked. Stopping power, it gets the job done. Guidance range, it gets the job done. Most importantly, it works. Long Lance had tons of issues. Most other torpedoes had issues. I prefer a torpedo that works 99% of the time and gets the job done for sinking stuff over anything else.
Okay, I think we've all had pretty solid picks, which all have very good reasons behind them.
Moyan picked.
Oh, he hasn't. Choose a torpedo. Choose a torpedo. Choose. Just
don't choose Jeffrey Epstein. I won't say that.
This is slightly difficult because I don't have one. Torpedo is torpedo.
Fair enough. Typical gunnery officer. Which missile would you rather have to replace the US Chaparral in the Cold War as the Army's short to medium range missile system? Or would you rather have the Chaparral with a better chassis and better fire control or guidance system? Just keep the Chaparral. There's nothing wrong with the basic platform as a short to medium range missile system. The missiles work for the most part. It's a reliable system. It's a common magazine with US Army Air Force units based in Europe for whatever variant of Sidewinder they're using. The chassis is actually pretty good that it's mounted on. It's a fairly mobile chassis. It's got some good grunt behind it. Go anywhere. You've got 4 missiles. They're fire and forget, along with being non-radar, so you're not going to be vulnerable to seed aircraft using anti-radiation missiles. And it's just it was generally just a solid system. A nice slot between the short-range pivads, or before that the M163, and the more longer-range standoff Hawk batteries. Just a genuinely solid system. Honestly, even as it was.
Don't get me wrong, its missiles were suboptimal for a land-based system, but that's just an issue with commonality.
Yeah. But it did mean that the US forces in Europe could just be sent tons of Sidewinders and then put them on their aircraft or on the Chaparrals in, the event that people started shooting and you wanted anti-air missiles right this fucking second.
Yeah.
Sufficiently Nautical asks, John Partial on the Unauthorized History of the Pacific War podcast said, oh, I don't know why I blocked it. Said that the Japanese fundamentally misunderstood their war they brought for themselves. Do you agree with this? What are some ways that the Japanese, either as a whole or individual leaders, did or did not understand what they'd gotten themselves into? Oh, they understood completely. The Japanese High Command knew exactly what they were getting into, and they knew it was a million to one roll of the dice. But the other alternative was giving up everything that Japanese service personnel had fought and died for over the last basically 5 to 6 years at that point. And that was an unconscionable thing for them to consider. To basically throw away every single service man who had died in the Imperial Japanese Navy and Imperial Japanese Army over the past 6 years would have been just... It would have brought down the Japanese political system had anyone tried to, and would have resulted in those who tried to getting cooed for those who would not. So the choice was clear. You roll that 1,000,000 to 1 chance to actually try and lock in all of your gains and make more gains and secure Japan the place in the sun that she seems to deserve.
I feel like you misunderstood the statement. I don't think John Partial is saying that the Japanese didn't realize that they were launching the war. I think they misunderstood how the war was going to be fought.
Which is, I'd actually agree with, because the Japanese understood that they'd have to fight America, but they misunderstood what type of war the Americans were going to fight.
Yeah. I think that is fair.
Because they thought America was going to fight it like a colonial war.
Yeah.
America did not fight it like a colonial war.
Yeah.
And that summary was based on, but the idea the Americans would fight it like a colonial war comes from watching European powers and their failure to understand that America's not a European power. It's an American power.
Yeah. Akazuki asks, and we're into questions that will be very much up Foxo and Dragon's Alley. Akazuki asks, Azure Lane Taiho gets teleported to our world. How does the world handle the situation before she latches onto some poor commander in the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force?
It's definitely going to...
She wouldn't latch. None of them are the commander. The commander is a very, very specific object.
Well, I will say this much. It's definitely going to accelerate conversations about whether or not physical objects can ever achieve a degree of personhood.
Mm-hmm.
Either that, or it's going to be a case of... Right. Let's see, how many medications actually affect a high-level functioning schizophrenic?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Japan may face an even higher wave of tourism.
Mm-hmm. Typical gun...
Yeah, because they have a World War II carrier.
Yeah, but if apparently ships in Azure Lane aren't actually the physical
Oh
shit.
they can summon the ship. This has been shown a number of times.
Yes.
Next.
Okay.
Here
Please.
comes another Sheridan question.
Yes. Typical gunnery officer asks, would you call the M551 Sheridan a failure for the US light tank? No. Do you think the M41 is the last true US light tank ever? No, that would be the Sheridan. And what is your opinion on the ideal M551 light tank replacement, the XM8? Well, we'll get into all of this. So, is the M551 Sheridan a failure? No. It was an ambitious project, but no, it didn't fail. It took a while to work out the kinks, but it did eventually turn into a unsteady but usable light tank.
Okay.
Does anyone want to tell about the shillelagh? Please.
I know about the shillelagh.
We all know about the shillelagh because we've answered this question in multiple different forms.
The shillelagh is one of the points the Sheridan basically falls down at, and it did take them a great deal of time to get that missile into a state where it wouldn't fail all the time. But
it wasn't just a shillelagh, but alright.
But they did get it there. However...
Is it?
Not really.
However, the important thing to bear in mind that this is a light armoured vehicle to support airborne troops. And while the lack of anti-armour capability is something that is a problem for the Sheridan, it can still perform the other role that a light armoured vehicle supporting airborne troops needs to do. Namely, infantry fire support. And it's very, very good at that.
It's almost like you forgot about the leaky gunpowder part.
Isn't the Sheridan built around shillelagh, and a lot of the design concessions in Sheridan are for it to mount shillelagh?
Yes.
Yeah. Honestly, the best way of fixing Sheridan is literally looking at some of the prototypes where they fit in different guns for it. And if they adopted one of those versions as a as a modified version of a Sheridan, then I think without a doubt most people would be like, okay,
It's
that first step, good, good catch on the rate adjustment, but they didn't.
It's like guns primary defining thing of the tank as a fire support asset. And even the HE shell was.
The problem with the HE shell is the fact that it's a bad HE shell. It's just the fact that it likes to spill gunpowder all over the place.
Yes, because it's functionally a case of ammunition, isn't it?
Try and reduce recoil,
So the case is burnt up on.
Sheridan's biggest weakness is just the sheer fact that the gun launcher system is absolutely horrendous. And if they got rid of that, there are still other problems, but it will actually function proper like tank engines. But it would actually function.
But it does function. It's just not very good. It's not a failure. It's just not very good.
But it's a failure.
It's not. It's just not very good.
We need to define failure. Because I feel like we're disagreeing because we don't understand. Yeah. We're not agreeing what failure.
Like for me, failure is not being adopted and basically being totally, completely, utterly unusable by the troops. Whereas Sheridan, despite its flaws, was used in combat, didn't always fucking die, didn't always explode and kill the troops manning it, and in some cases, like Desert Storm, actually is reported to have served without mechanical issue or problem. Like, for something to be a failure for me, it has to basically never work properly, never achieve any success in combat, kill the people who use it without them being engaged. If they are engaged, always result in the deaths of the people operating it.
basically, for it to be a failure, it has to achieve those goals. For it to be a poor vehicle with a checkered service record, you basically get the Sheridan for me. If that makes sense.
I have to fundamentally disagree with that, 'cause I'd call it a failure if it doesn't fit the design brief and is unsafe and a threat to the crews using it.
Which is like...
Yeah, Fleet's definition of failure there is not the definition of failure.
Yeah, because that
That is,
puts
Fleet's definition is
vehicles
so
like...
far beyond.
Because that puts vehicles like the Ferdinand Tank Destroyer in not being failures.
Well, it wasn't a failure.
Tanks
The
like
Germans
T-50,
regarded it a failure.
tanks like T-50 not being a failure.
Again, like this
Fucking
is...
M7 not being a failure.
Again, like I
Right,
say...
as much as I love the tank, Excelsior was deemed a failure.
And it's
But
the reason I call it a failure,
Excelsior
right?
was good.
I
The
mean,
reason I call it a failure is because it didn't really fit the design brief. It was an, especially in its earlier part of the career, it was an active threat to its gun crews, even with the gun not exploding. Its fume extractors were horrible. It was legitimate long-term threat to its crews.
Sea Dodders, I'm going to point out, just because something's a failure does not mean it cannot be in service for a long time.
And a large reason it was kept in service is because the force using it know they're not gonna get a replacement for it.
That's why they spent so long trying to fix it.
Yeah.
That's why it actually functions semi decently in Desert Storm.
Because it's
Someone is willing to put in the effort to actually fix it.
Yeah. And it's like it can be a failure and still be useful. But it
that's
had to
the
have enough.
contradiction in terms.
No, it's not.
The Saab 93 was a failure and it's a brilliant car.
But
As a technical development and main surface force replacement program, the Zumwalt is a failure. I'll
Right. So,
concede the technical development, but because the Zumwalt program did not produce enough hulls, the Zumwalt program is a failure. However, anybody who says that the Zumwalt is not a useful and capable asset has problems.
all right,
Yeah.
okay,
So,
all right.
right,
Actually,
so
I like
here's what-
that
well,
definition.
Can we get some
I-
actual clarification? No, Fleet.
That's
This-
what he was doing. That's what he was literally fucking doing, Dragon. Let him speak.
So, I
He
like.
wasn't, but okay.
I like the precedent that Ruinon has just set down. So basically, you could split it. You could split the vehicle from the program. So the program that the Sheridan came out of was a failure because it produced the Sheridan. The Sheridan was a deeply flawed vehicle, but it itself wasn't a failure. If that makes sense. I think that's what Ruinon's driving.
No, that doesn't. And also, thanks, Foxo. He literally did not do what you were saying. What I was going to ask is, Fleet, what is your hard definition of a failure?
I didn't I already?
He did explain that.
No, yeah, but so what is that? The whole thing of where it has to get everything killed if it's used at one,
Well,
because that's not a definition.
For some, what do you want in relation to you? Do you mean my general definition of failure overall? Do you mean in relation to the Sheridan? Do
In
you
this
mean...
context,
As in
what
an
would the Sheridan
as in
have
a-
to do to be a failure?
Because your point was, oh, it would have to get everyone killed every time it was deployed, which is not the definition of failure. Which is why I was after what your actual definition of failure is, because if that's your definition, please go look at a dictionary.
I mean, that's my definition of what something has to do to fail is not dependent on the dictionary.
Words have meaning.
In this particular case, you asked for my definition of failure. So in this particular
Yes.
case, no, they do not.
So They do because so that is your actual right. Then that's not failure.
It's my definition of failure, which is what you
But
asked for.
Yeah. The reason why I asked for it was to see whether you actually were using the word correctly, which you're not. Once again,
If you say words have meaning, I am going to fucking...
I've already done so. Go back 10 seconds.
Shall we move on before we beat each other bloody over this?
Probably, yeah. Wise to, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like, to just get back to the Sheridan itself, there was some other issues with the Sheridan. Like it being vulnerable to GPMGs.
Yeah, that is a minor.
Which crews and commanders really did not like.
At that point,
Because C-Dodders brought up C-Dodders brought up the issues commanders and crews had with them in Vietnam.
Yeah. Like, yeah, Sheridan is... Again, there's a lot of this whole difference of opinion is down to, again, difference of opinion and difference of personal expectation. But that's just humanity in a nutshell.
Now, to be fair, downing the Sheridan on its protective capability is not exactly the best way of analyzing it, considering the requirement it has.
It is a tank that you're supposed to chuck out of a plane with a
And
parachute.
it also has to float.
Yeah, but even stuff like the BMPs are resistant to GPMGs.
The BMPs aren't...
Yeah, but you can't throw a BMP out of back of a plane.
You can throw a BMD out, but a BMD is only resistant frontally. Which I think... Is the Sheridan resistant frontally to GPMG?
Nope.
Questionable.
Damn, they fucked that up. I'll admit, they
So
fucked
you're
that up.
looking at... I think it's up to 12 millimeters of aluminium.
I knew the armor on the Sheridan was bad, but... Okay, you know what?
There's arguments that
Do you know what? I
real
would...
weights.
Thing is, the key point of the Sheridan is not protection. It is a mobile gun platform for the airborne.
Yeah, so I'll just say this. If a light mobile gun platform that is supposed to take rifle and GPMG fire to deliver its ordnance against entrenched positions and enemy armor cannot resist GPMG fire, which I did not know. I had assumed, and from what I had read, basically assumed that the Sheridan was at least proof against that. At that point, that would cross the threshold for one of my, failure points that I listed before.
To be fair.
Like, it has the potential to, when deployed, be exceptionally vulnerable and possibly get its crew killed from weaponry that, infantry would be vulnerable to. And as an armored gun platform, that's basically a failure point.
Yeah,
To be
it's
fair,
like...
you need to think about what it replaces, though.
Go on.
Because
It don't
you
replace
may,
T92.
if you're comparing it to a Walker Bulldog, yeah, it's a failure. But compare that to Scorpion.
Oh, no, I'm not.
It's not even really compared to Scorpion. It's actually more
I'm
compared to Ontos.
Yeah, I'm not comparing it to Walker Bulldog. I'm comparing it to the fact this is supposed to be a mobile, airdroppable gun platform. And like, while I would expect vulnerability to heavy MG, 12.7, 14.5, those sort of calibers. That's I would expect that. But vulnerability to GPMG from every angle. That's just... They couldn't even give it frontal protection against GPMG. That's
Well, it was GPMG flat, though. It was, you needed the flat front.
Still, even...
And it was relatively close range.
Even
But
then.
that's why I call it a failure, because its main defining feature is the shillelagh gun system.
Yeah. Because then, but at that point, if you can't use the shillelagh, you've got to get close. And if you've got to get close, you're vulnerable to things. And if you go... Yeah.
It's like, your defining feature is a failure. Like, The Scorpion's worse protected, but that 90mm gun works.
The
The 90 mil does
Now
work.
understand.
No, that's not why I'm going. I'm going. Hang on.
Hang on. The Scorpion's worse protected.
Hang
Also,
on. Hang on. Scorpion.
Also, the Scorpion was retired 10 years earlier.
Hang on. Which?
Yes.
Hang on a minute. Which Scorpion? Oh wait.
As in the air-droppable M56 Scorpion. Air-droppable
Oh,
anti-tank.
Yes.
that Scorpion. I was thinking,
Yeah.
hang on a minute.
Yes.
Scorpion with a
Not the
90mm gun.
British Army Scorpion.
Yeah, because you get. That's why you had me confused. That's why I was going 90mm gun in a Scorpion. The Cockerill 90 was barely adopted, and it kind of sucked on the Scorpion.
Yeah, but so the Scorpion because it was used in Vietnam, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, you had me going for a moment there, folks.
Yeah, and it wasn't liked and wasn't disliked. 'Cause they just liked the fact it was a 90mm gun.
This is a gun
Mobile
on a
90mm
track
gun.
chassis. We're going places, boys.
And it's like
And
at
that's
least the gun on
basically
that
what
thing
Sheridan's
works.
supposed to be doing.
Yeah, the Sheridan's replacement for that role, and the Scorpion's main defining feature is
Gun.
the 90mm gun. The 90mm because it's the M3, isn't it? If I remember correctly.
Yes, same 90mm as on the
Well, no, it's the M54. It's a much more compact version of an M3, basically.
yeah.
Okay, so if the M54 that works, and that was successful.
Hey, I didn't
The
realize...
Shillelagh system doesn't work.
Hey, fun.
Therefore, it is a failure.
Hey, fun factoid, by the way. The M56 was, while it was also used by the US Airborne Force, it was also used by the Spanish Navy's Marines and the Moroccan Army. Little factoid for you.
It's a cute little tonk. Like, you can't really go wrong with that sort of design.
Not really, no.
I mean, yeah, it's the whole of a gun on it.
But yeah, so as I said, I didn't know about certain, problems with the vehicle. This is why we have these nice long-winded discussions, because, people learn things, and then they can change perspectives. It's lovely. Ontos was actually a very good platform, but it... What was it? There was a reason why it wasn't adopted by the Airborne. I forget why. What was it?
Very simple. The army said no.
Yes.
They
Army
said they weren't allowed them.
And there's also...
The army canceled the project, and then the Marines were like,
We'll
"Army
take 'em."
shit? Yeah, the army shit. Our army don't take them. We take them.
Yeah.
And they
That
proved
is
to be
Marine Corps
incredibly
in a
useful.
nutshell. Anything army don't take, Marine will take.
And
Yeah,
honestly,
but Foster, there was concerns with dropping the recoilless rifles out of an aircraft.
yeah, they
Yes.
are a little bit.
There was another reason. That's part of the reason why you see some of them going to new actual full can designs, which was also quite interesting. But basically, was no, we're not giving you more money for this thing.
Although I will point out the Ontos is an excellent, innovative solution for the problem of dealing with lots of armored vehicles when you have limited capability to move a chassis around. And also, you want to make sure you get first shot kill. So the 50 cal spotting rifles are a genius idea because they have identical ballistics to the recoilless guns. So if your 50 cal round hits, the following 105 is going to land as well. You've got 6 barrels, which you could fire as rapidly or as one at a time as you want. It can take the recoilless versions of most of the standard 105 ammunition, which does mean...
Aside from the Sabo.
Yeah, aside from the Sabo, which means you can also mag dump a building with 6105 HE, which results in that building no longer being a building.
You just get 105 hash.
And then, of course, you've
Or
got...
105 plastic, as Americans
Yeah.
call it.
And then, of course, you've got the fact that the Ontos actually did succeed in its role. It knocked out 2 L60s and an AMX-13. So it actually got kills.
It was also a very good fire support asset.
Yeah. Ontos for the win.
Marines love them
Yep.
because they actually have an armor as well.
Yeah. Akazuki asks, what if Hosh turned into a ship girl and went forwards in time to today? Would Fleet immediately seek her out, or will Fleet cry because his favourite ship turned into a ship girl? Well, I mean, no, I'm not going to immediately seek her out. A, she wouldn't know who I am. B, she's this point an independent being who's probably very confused and probably needs to be in France with French people who understand her language. And no, I wouldn't cry because my favourite ship got turned into a ship girl because, well, A, I probably wouldn't know it had happened unless it was national news, which it might be, depending on, or if she just becomes a very confused, ginger-haired French woman. Yes, I am using the soul design here. That will probably just, who's claiming to be the personification of a ship. She'll probably be politely walked into a certain hospital to be helped, shall we say.
That's interesting that you think people would be able to do that.
No, I'm just saying. But
it depends what interpretation.
Yeah,
well, if you go for
does.
ship girl, they can very much resist quite easily.
But if you go for Warship Girls, no. But if you go for Kantai Collection, yes.
Well, I'm going with Kantai and Azure Lane.
I'd rather her not be an Azure Lane ship girl. I much prefer her to be a Kantai Collection ship girl. Because I understand.
Kantai for the win.
Because I understand Kantai Collection.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
No, you don't.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
You understand Kantai even less than AL, and that says something.
No, I actually fairly well understand Kantai, at least, well, a little bit. Whereas I don't understand that.
Okay, what's an abyssal?
Let me think. If I remember my lore correctly, they're both a combination of the angered spirits.
Fleet's brains loading noises.
Just like it's the old Windows static sound. As far as I can remember, they are. If they're just the minions, they are the minions, which are, I don't think, based on a particular ship. But the actual boss abyssals are supposed to be the angered and vengeful spirits. They're basically anti-ship girls, if that makes sense. They're angered and vengeful spirits of sunken warships that are seeking revenge on humanity. So I think, what is it? There's the I forget exactly what ships they're named after, but there's some that are. See, this is where I haven't looked in a while, but did I get it right?
Some of it, right?
Yay.
I think I heard Foxo disconnect noises, which concerns me greatly because when she reconnects, it's usually brutal.
But
It's a case
there's
of...
a lot of fan in there. There was a lot of fan in there.
No, it's just being a Kantai Collection ship girl is just perpetual pain.
Also, I would like to point out that we now have official confirmation that the Soul Host ship girl design is now canon.
Yes.
Fleet has spoken.
I spoke at the time.
Fleet hath spokeneth, and he has said things that shall get him decreed as a heretic.
Anyway, enough tangent. We should move on.
So the final question. We've actually, not done bad. 3 hours and a half. We had a nice long session today. So typical gunner officer asks.
More questions.
No, that's not how it works.
We've got Stell.
Titanicus can wait.
Typical gunnery officer asks.
You say that to Cake though.
Yeah. Typical gunnery officer asks. Question 16. Where would you rank the TOW2 compared to these Cold War AGMs? The Milan, the Swingfire, the Kronkers, and the Hot. Considering you've named the Hot, the Kronkers, the Swingfire, the Milan, and not the Milan 2 and the Hot 2, TOW2 beats those two. Swingfire, it's more difficult because while Swingfire is an older missile, it's also firing a fucking telegraph pole at you. And that thing's gonna hurt no matter what you fucking are. But again, that's down to the fact that Swingfire is a fucking chonker of a missile. And even though it is slightly older, again, fucking chonker of a missile with insane range at the time. And by the time TOW2 comes in, Swingfire is still competitive. Which just goes to show how fucking overkill Swingfire actually bloody was when it entered service.
Well, Swingfire's issue by that stage is mostly heating and tracking.
Yes indeed. Konkurs is a dependable Soviet ATGM, but in terms of raw capability, it does fall behind TOW2.
Literally last generation before.
Yeah, literally, yeah.
most of these missiles are starfighters, where the Toad 2 is a fucking F-14.
Yeah. Basically.
Oh Lord, he chonking.
But yes, thank you very much, everybody, for coming.
We're gonna have a longer discussion about that one.
Oh, okay.
Not all of them get long ones, I'm afraid, Foxo, but
Short discussion.
So, thank you very much, everyone, for watching. I hope you've all had as enjoyable an evening as I have, and I actually have enjoyed it. I was actually looking forward to this all week when I saw how many questions we had to do. I'm very glad that my schedule lined up to allow me to do this as I normally do, rather than any delays to it, so everything has gone pretty well there. I now have to go and try and bash Sidious over the head with a sledgehammer to reclaim my players. Again.
I'm probably not doing that, though.
Yeah, no.
Also, can we appreciate that Fleet's politics are swinging around like a 14-year-old's?
What are you
Like-
talking about?
Honestly, it's more amusing that Fleet thinks he can try, get people this when he could have sent a message like 3 or 4 hours ago, or even this morning, to people saying, "Hey, after ramblings, I intend to do this. If there is a
I
rambling,
always do it after ramblings.
you didn't
Do
last
it
week, did
before.
you?
I did.
You didn't on Monday either.
Not for last Friday. You didn't because you couldn't get the players.
Yes, because, yeah, but again,
So,
these are
like
the
I
first
said
2
last
weeks,
week,
it hasn't happened.
yeah,
Because
so
again,
like I said last week, have you thought of sending a message before Sidious
I've
does?
been working. I have been on the road. I have
Right.
not been able to look at my phone. I have been on the road all day.
So you could have done it this morning though, or yesterday?
I was up at 6. I was out of the house for 7, and all that time I was getting ready and getting to go on the road. I literally had.
You should sleep, not do.
Right. But
Anyway,
Fleet,
shall we knock this
fucking
one over the head and then
sleep.
give
Yes,
Fleet a new
yes.
matter expulsion port
Ah,
afterwards?
Can we spam sleep in the chat so Fleet goes to fucking sleep?
No, I am fine. I'm all right. I had a good night's sleep.
You woke up
beforehand.
at 6. You're not fine.
I woke up at
I
6.
wake up at 04:30, Foxo.
Foxo,
Yes, and you're not fine.
Foxo, I went to bed
Okay,
at
fair
8
point.
o'clock
I'm there,
the night
Runo.
before. I went to bed at 8 o'clock the night before and got a good 10 hours sleep.
My point still
Wait,
stands.
have
If
you ever
wake up
mentioned
at
what new
6,
occupation you have acquired,
you
or
need to
you
I
unwilling?
will leave that private, I think, for now. I will share
Fair
it with
enough.
close friends.
that's fair.
The
hang
question
on,
is
hang on,
high
hang on,
intensity,
hang on,
is
hang
high
on.
intensity work,
Wasn't
so
there-
fucking
wasn't-
sleep.
Wasn't there something that you wanted to discuss, Dragon, before we ended? Something that we put away for a second
I-
and then it came back to? I can't remember. It'll come
Anyone
to
else
me.
remember this, or is Fleet going nuts?
It'll come to me.
Going.
Anyway,
It's almost like sleep deprivation has negative
I
consequences.
am not sleep deprived, you colossal fox-shaped
You're as
gremlin.
right. You are as sleep deprived as Runon is old.
I am not. Thank
Oh.
you.
No, you lose brain cells if you have less than 6 hours of sleep
Hey.
every night.
That means Fleet's not sleep deprived.
Exactly.
Because I'm not old.
Exactly.
Okay, Venerable, do you want to? How about we have the Tech Marine sing you some lullabies and you go to sleep?
And
Okay.
on that terrible disappointment
that would
in
be
Foxo's
nice.
nonsense, this is time to end.